power of the Taoist Black Lotus penetrated Jiang Chengxuan's physical form, reaching his sea of consciousness and forming a thread that firmly anchored him, preventing his consciousness from being devoured by the primordial chaos. The Taoist Black Lotus, originating from the outer realm, inherently possesses the power to disregard space-time and rules, which proved to be particularly effective for Jiang Chengxuan as he navigated the primordial chaos. The outer realm is a domain of chaos that existed even before the universe was born, its nature enigmatic and undefined, much like the primordial world itself. Both are ancient beyond measure. Jiang Chengxuan's consciousness slowly began to recover. He felt as if there was a light above him, like a door at the end of the universe. Falling through it could lead to unimaginable consequences, where no one would be able to find him. Jiang Chengxuan couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Because the process was too smooth, he was too anxious. Under the enhancement of the breakthrough power, his comprehension ability soared. In an instant, he could see thousands of transformations. The thing he yearned for was at his fingertips. In the end, he could not stop himself from remaining composed. However, fortunately, he still had such a backup plan that could avert danger. The Taoist Black Lotus woke him from the state of being devoured, enabling his escape from danger. By recalling the myriad transformations he directly recorded in his mind and reversing them, he found his way back. With the Taoist Black Lotus's guidance, the primordial chaos could no longer consume his consciousness. Thus, Jiang Chengxuan gradually moved away from the eternal light above, cautiously retreating to his starting point, with utmost focus and without any oversight. This process, immensely slow and time-consuming, allowed Jiang Chengxuan to return to his initial state of enlightenment just before the power of the Taoist Black Lotus dissipated. Back in reality, his body fully recovered, averting the crisis perfectly. Phew! Jiang Chengxuan sighed in relief, surprised that even with thorough preparation, the breakthrough was fraught with danger. Yet it was all worth it. In his sea of consciousness, a colorful orb of light was bursting with radiance, immensely powerful. It was the seed of the Tao he had comprehended in the primordial world. It was the law of creation. Only such power could guide the Tao of the 5 elements and the cycle of samsara, and it was this force Jiang Chengxuan nearly got swallowed by the primordial chaos for. Fortunately, it resulted in significant gains. Jiang Chengxuan consolidated all his powers, understanding, dharmic power and primordial spirit, back into his being. The world of the 5 elements and the cycle of samsara continued to manifest, playing out the cycle of creation and destruction. In the next moment, Jiang Chengxuan slowly threw the colorful seed in his sea of consciousness into the 5 elements and the cycle of samsara. Immediately after, a tremendously powerful force erupted, enveloping everything without a hint of destruction, only creation. Under this force, the Tao of the 5 elements and the cycle of samsara harmonized perfectly, without conflict or suppression. With the seed of creation's help, Jiang Chengxuan completely grasped the 5 elements Tao and the samsara Tao. It was even higher than this world itself. Now, Jiang Chengxuan had gathered all the conditions for advancing to the realm of Tao mastery. All that was left was the passage of time to fully open the doors to this realm. Time flew swiftly. The seclusion restrictions of Cloud Mist Peak were lifted after 100 years, marking a century since Jiang Chengxuan officially began his seclusion, a period during which there had been no disturbance. On a certain day, a heart-thumping aura emanated from Cloud Mist Peak, reaching every cultivator of the Haoran sect. They felt a sense of oppressive mire, leading some to wonder if an enemy had infiltrated the Haoran sect. However, such a notion was quickly dismissed with laughter. The Haoran sect, now an overlord force, was not easily challenged. Thus, speculation about the origin of this daunting aura persisted. Where did this shocking aura come from? Rumble! Just as everyone was still thinking in confusion, a bolt of lightning suddenly exploded. At the same time, a powerful 7-colored energy suddenly erupted on Cloud Mist Peak, shocking everyone. This terrifying force shot straight into the sky, its magnitude rivaling that of a Mahayana Dailord. Even the Haoran sect's protective array quivered under its influence. This was an astonishing feat. In an instant, Qin Shenwu, Zhu Ping, Leng Yuehua, and the others could feel the overwhelming suppression of this power. All the elders of the Haoran sect flew out of the hall and stood in the air with solemn expressions. Could it be that there was really a powerful force that wanted to attack the Haoran sect? Hahaha. Yet amidst the tension, Qin Shenwu's laughter rang out, puzzling everyone. What could possibly bring such joy to a Mahayana Dailord under these circumstances? Senior brother, what's going on? Lang Yuehu could tell that Qin Shenwu knew what was going on, so she asked him. Hearing this, Qin Shenwu revealed a proud expression and said loudly, "That means Cheng Xuan is coming out of seclusion." Jiang Chengshuan, out of seclusion. In an instant, all the upper echelons of the Heoran sect were even more confused. Only Lang Yuehua was shocked. Jiang Chengshuan, is he going to break through to the Tao mastery? Lang Yuehua said in disbelief, but what she received was another burst of laughter from Qin Shenwu. This was undoubtedly an answer to this question. This commotion that alarmed the entire Heoran sect was actually caused by Jiang Chengshuan's breakthrough. In an instant, everyone was stunned. Even sect master Zhu Ping was in disbelief. He had vaguely heard about Jiang Chengshuan's seclusion. To cultivators, seclusion was a common occurrence. However, he did not know that Jiang Chengshuan was actually in seclusion to break through to the Tao mastery. In what felt like a brief period, Jiang Chengshuan had achieved another breakthrough, a notion both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Not just Zhu Ping, but everyone present shared this sentiment. Jiang Chengshuan arrived at the Heoran sect later than many of them, but his realm was already higher than many of them. Now, he was about to break through to the Tao mastery. Even though they had witnessed Jiang Chengshuan's rise, they could not help but exclaim. Such talent was really unimaginable. Such prowess made it seem like even advancing to a Mahayana Dailord would be a minor challenge for Jiang Chengshuan in the future. As more and more cultivators gathered around Cloud Mist Peak, the area around Jiang Chengshuan's cave abode became densely packed. From the sect master and elders to the ordinary disciples, discussions about the phenomenon were endless. Hey, whose elder's cave abode is this, and what's happening here? This is the cave abode of our sect's vice sect master, Jiang Chengshuan. It's said that he's about to break through to the realm of Tao mastery. Ah, vice sect master Jiang. I've heard of him. It's said he'll soon become the future sect master of our Heoran sect. The disciples of the Heoran sect were abuzz with conversations about Jiang Chengshuan, whose fame had grown immensely over the years, not only for his achievements in the Five Realms War and various battles, but also for his astonishing rate of cultivation progress. Many disciples who had joined the sect earlier than Jiang Chengshuan had yet to reach the Tao fusion realm, despite being considered geniuses. Yet next to Jiang Chengshuan, these talents seemed ordinary. He was nothing short of a monstrous genius. To the current generation of the Heoran sect, Jiang Chengshuan was a living legend, the closest prodigy they had, likely to reach the realm of the Mahayana in the future. As disciples of the Heoran sect, they felt honored by his presence. Nearby in the sky, two familiar figures stood side by side, looking towards Cloud Mist Peak. Junior brother Chengshuan. They were Jiang Chengshuan's senior brother and sister, Zhao Tianfen and Zai Xianyao. They had witnessed Jiang Chengshuan's growth and the birth of the legend of the Heoran sect. They had mixed feelings. Their eyes were filled with envy, pride, and admiration. When Jiang Chengshuan first came to the Heoran sect, they were the ones taking care of him. But now they could only look up at their junior brother, Jiang Chengshuan. This is the path of cultivation, where strength is revered and talent is the only passport. Effort, intelligence, and time are merely tools for mortals to catch up with geniuses. But true geniuses simply need to follow their destined path, leaving everyone else behind. Rumble. Suddenly, an even greater commotion came from Cloud Mist Peak. A pile of rainbow lights formed clouds, and an extraordinary aura instantly spread throughout the Heoran sect, carrying the essence of the Tao's beginning, filled with the power of supreme laws. Bathed in this light, countless Heoran sect disciples felt their minds open, with many achieving enlightenment and making breakthroughs on the spot. Even the elders in the Tao integration realm gained deeper insights into the Tao. What a formidable aura! What kind of Tao is this? It's extraordinary, exclaimed an elder at the Tao fusion. Under the influence of the aura emitted by the seed of creation, he felt that the bottleneck of his realm was slightly loosened. Jiang Chengshuan's breakthrough into Tao mastery had an unexpectedly beneficial effect on him. If only there were more of this aura, his own breakthrough might come hundreds of years sooner than expected. And indeed, as if in answer to his wishes, another burst of rainbow light exploded, the terrifying aura sweeping over everyone once more, benefiting countless Heoran sect disciples. Rumble. Some keen-eyed elders noticed that cloud mist peak itself seemed to be growing taller with each burst of energy. Rumble. The terrifying aura was overwhelming, akin to a series of explosions occurring within the universe, one wave after another, which also caused cloud mist peak's elevation to soar. Under the illumination of the rainbow light, it grew at an incredible rate, imbued with profound mysteries. The entire Haoran sect, bathed in this celestial light, seemed like a paradise descended to earth, with various miraculous phenomena manifesting within the light. Stars ablaze, ancient beasts roaming as if in the cosmos, and scenes from various worlds, both past and future, materialized before everyone's eyes. Mythical creatures appeared within the light, seemingly turning the Haoran sect into a celestial court. Moreover, as the creation-like aura intensified, the number of Haoran sect disciples experiencing breakthroughs skyrocketed. Their breakthroughs, combined with the extraordinary events at Cloud Mist Peak, made the site appear especially mystical, as if an ancient deity was spreading Tao teachings, allowing countless mortals to ascend. Such phenomena, typically associated with the breakthrough of a Mahayana Dailord, were unexpectedly triggered by Jiang Chengxuan's advancement to the realm of Tao mastery. Rumble. As Yunwu Peak continued its unrestrained growth, it finally touched the Haoran sect's protective barriers, causing intense tremors. The entire vicinity of the Haoran sect shook violently. Barrier open. At that moment, Qin Shenwu, Jiang Chengxuan's Shifu, acted. With a wave of his hand, an invisible force was unleashed, and the sect's protective barriers were deactivated. With Qin Shenwu present, the existence of the barriers was inconsequential. Jiang Chengxuan's breakthrough was the priority, and deactivating the barriers was a protective measure to prevent them from being damaged by his breakthrough. Unhindered by the barriers, Cloud Mist Peak grew even more wildly, as if it intended to puncture a hole in the heavens of the floodgate realm. As it surpassed the original confines of the Haoran sect, the mystical light and aura exploded throughout the floodgate realm like a beacon. Rumble. The terrifying aura spread instantly, sweeping across the skies of the Haoran sect and the surrounding regions. The spectacle brought about by the breakthrough expanded endlessly, attracting attention even from the outside world. The nearby Thunderclap Valley was the first to sense the aura from Cloud Mist Peak. The elders of Thunderclap Valley were shocked by the sudden emergence of such formidable power from the Haoran sect. They flew out of the valley, looking towards the spectacle, and were astonished by the sight of the rainbow light and the phenomena. What's happening? What occurred at the Haoran sect? In an instant, everyone at Thunderclap Valley was confused and filled with questions. No one could have guessed that this was the result of Jiang Chengxuan's breakthrough to the realm of Tao mastery, except for his Tao companion, Shen Ruyan. Upon sensing the disturbances at the Haoran sect, she suspected it might be Jiang Chengxuan's successful breakthrough. Seeing the sky-reaching Cloud Mist Peak from outside Thunderclap Valley confirmed her suspicions. Her husband, Jiang Chengxuan, had successfully broken through to the realm of Tao mastery. Even amidst the extraordinary phenomena, she recognized Cloud Mist Peak, a sight she was all too familiar with. Knowing Jiang Chengxuan was about to emerge from seclusion, Shen Ruyan didn't hesitate for a moment. She manifested the rule of lightning and turned into a bolt of lightning, heading straight for the Haoran sect. She had already sensed Jiang Chengxuan's aura. There was no mistake. The other elders of Thunderclap Valley, witnessing their holy daughter suddenly depart, were once again astonished. Could it be that the commotion at the Haoran sect was somehow related to them? As the people of Thunderclap Valley stood puzzled, not sure how to react, Shen Ruyan's Shifu, Yun Yizhen, appeared among them. Sect Master, what's happening at the Haoran sect? And the Holy Daughter, is something significant about to occur? An elder immediately asked, given the terrifying phenomena and aura that naturally led those unaware of the situation to fear the worst. Not at all, Yun Yizhen responded, shaking his head with a mix of resignation and admiration in his eyes. I believe it's because of Ruyan's Tao companion, Jiang Chengxuan of the Haoran sect, successfully breaking through to the realm of Tao mastery. His words caused a collective gasp of shock among the listeners. Jiang Chengxuan was known to them, some having witnessed his breakthroughs and victories in the Eastern Sky domain. But to think in just 200 years, Jiang Chengxuan was on the verge of another breakthrough, entering the realm of Tao mastery. The very thought was incredulous, almost magical. Could anyone truly achieve such a rate of cultivation progress, never failing in their breakthroughs? and not to mention the extravagant phenomenon, Jiang Chengxuan would surely be the top among the Tao mastery saints after breakthrough. As a brother sect to the Haoran sect, they naturally felt a sense of joy, but amazement and envy were inevitable. Such a figure truly is extraordinary. The Haoran sect is set to become unstoppable. Shifting focus to Shen Ruyan. Driven by urgency, she used her full power to harness lightning, arriving in front of the Haoran sect in mere moments. The sect was enveloped in colorful clouds and various phenomena, but she only felt comfort and tranquility within this energy. With the sect's protective barriers down, Shen Ruyan entered without hindrance, heading straight for Cloud Mist Peak. Qin Shenwu, who was already aware of her arrival, naturally wouldn't obstruct her. Arriving near Cloud Mist Peak, she saw many cultivators gathered around. The sect master Zhu Ping, elder Leng Yuehua, and others were closely monitoring Jiang Chengxuan's breakthrough. Noticing Shen Ruyan, Qin Shenwu smiled at her, nodding in acknowledgement. It was clear that now was not the time for pleasantries. Everyone was anxiously awaiting Jiang Chengxuan's emergence. Many elders were concerned the power might spiral out of control, standing by prepared for any eventuality. This ancient, vast, and majestic energy not only greatly aided Shen Ruyan, but also benefited her due to her strong ties with Jiang Chengxuan. Soon, amidst the colorful light, Shen Ruyan found peace. She gradually opened her arms wide and began to absorb this energy. Her aura began to increase bit by bit. At the same time, the Tao rule she grasped gradually became much closer to her. Under the influence of the power unleashed by Jiang Chengxuan's breakthrough, the strength of the Haoran sect was undeniably elevated. Almost every disciple and elder within the Haoran sect benefited from this breakthrough, marking a celebration unique to the Haoran sect. While Jiang Chengxuan sat in meditation within his cave, he transformed almost entirely into a figure made of colorful radiance, resembling glazed porcelain. With the help of the seed of creation Tao, he finally imprinted his mark upon the Tao of the 5 elements and the cycle of samsara, achieving their complete mastery. At this moment, his body became the very embodiment of the world of the 5 elements and the cycle of samsara, the manifestation of these 2 great Taos. In such a state, he could fully utilize the power of both Taos, becoming nearly immortal. As long as the Tao exists, he could not be killed by any foe. Given the endless cycle of birth and rebirth inherent in the Taos of the 5 elements in samsara, erasing these Taos would pose a challenge even for a Mahayana Dailord. Rumble! A thunderous sound exploded within Jiang Chengxuan, signifying the pulsation of exponentially growing dharmic power. Through years forgotten, both his dharmic power and Tao reached the level of Tao mastery. Now, he was a true cultivator at the realm of Tao mastery. From the realm of Tao fusion to Tao mastery, it took him only 200 years, a feat even Jiang Chengxuan himself found astonishing. Ding! At that moment, the system's voice finally rang out in Jiang Chengxuan's mind, officially recognizing his breakthrough. Congratulations to the host for achieving the breakthrough to the realm of Tao mastery. Reward, upgrading pearl. Using this item, a heaven-connecting spiritual treasure can be directly promoted to an arcane celestial treasure. Hearing this, Jiang Chengxuan, already elated, was utterly stunned. This was essentially like handing him an arcane celestial treasure. It had to be known that this was a treasure that only Dailords could possess. And here he was, just having broken through to the realm of Tao mastery, receiving such a reward. This reward hit right at the heart of Jiang Chengxuan, bringing him immense joy. With an arcane celestial treasure, he was confident that, in the realm of Tao mastery, he could easily dominate all opponents. Such was the confidence brought by breaking through to the realm of Tao mastery with the rule of creation. In terms of rules, he was invincible. Now, he was even invincible in terms of Dharma treasures. Moreover, the system's voice had not ended. There were still subsequent rewards. Reward, profound Tao disc. This treasure can deduce the heavenly secrets, enhancing the effect of heavenly calculation technique, and can also block others from deducing information about oneself. The series of effects once again left Jiang Chengxuan in shock. Items capable of deduction are incredibly versatile, valuable both for offense and defense. This Tao disc, specifically tailored for Jiang Chengxuan, could even enhance the efficacy of his deducing abilities to an astonishing degree, likely even preventing deduction by immortals. It took a moment for Jiang Chengxuan to gather his composure before swiftly storing the 2 treasures. Rising from his meditation mat, he closed his eyes, continuously reviewing the images of his breakthrough. Only after organizing his insights from this breakthrough did Jiang Chengxuan prepare to leave seclusion. After a century of secluded cultivation, Jiang Chengxuan had dedicated every moment to breaking through. He had prepared thoroughly, amassing resources, treasures, and pills. Despite such meticulous preparation, the breakthrough process was perilous, almost leading to an irreversible catastrophe, highlighting the immense difficulty of reaching Tao mastery. After all, he was endowed with the Tao rules of the 5 elements in samsara, 2 of the supreme Tao rules. To fully master them, even he had to take significant risks. Eventually, though not without its dangers, he succeeded not only in advancing to Tao mastery, but also secured the seed of the creation Tao. This was undeniably a blessing in disguise. Meanwhile, within the Haoran sect, the ever-expanding cloud mist peak finally ceased its growth. Now it reached an unbelievable height, visible throughout the entire region. Clearly, in the future, this peak would symbolize the Haoran sect, representing the legend of the fastest Tao mastery breakthrough in the history of the Floodgate realm. The cessation of activity at Cloud Mist Peak signified one thing: Jiang Chengxuan was about to emerge from seclusion. Such a sign stirred anticipation among all, eagerly awaiting his appearance. Excitement was evident on the faces of many Haoran sect disciples, as if they themselves had broken through. The elders familiar with Jiang Chengxuan were flush with delight, offering endless praises. Jiang Chengxuan's emergence benefited every member of the Haoran sect, providing them with the confidence to strive for the title of the greatest sect in the Floodgate realm. Everyone quietly awaited the moment, anticipating the lifting of the seclusion barrier and Jiang Chengxuan's emergence. Rumble. As the energy fluctuation spread, the seclusion barrier dissolved before all eyes. Then countless rays of light shot out from the cave, like treasures being born, dazzlingly beautiful. Jiang Chengxuan's figure emerged slowly from the brilliant lights, appearing before everyone. Upon stepping out of the cave, Jiang Chengxuan sensed something amiss. It seemed like tens of thousands of eyes were upon him, and oddly, the location of his cave had changed. For a moment, he thought something dire had happened to the Haoran sect. But then, seeing the joyful expressions of Shen Ruyan, Qin Shenwu, sect leader Zhu Ping, and elder Leng Yuehua, Jiang Chengxuan immediately understood what had occurred. Apparently, his breakthrough had caused such a commotion that it attracted everyone in the sect. "Husband, congratulations on your breakthrough to Tao mastery." The next moment, Shen Ruyan approached him with a beaming smile, her hands clasped in salute, her face alight with joy. The occasion wasn't right for an intimate embrace. Thus, Shen Ruyan only approached to congratulate him verbally. "Thank you for your kind words, wife." Joy shared his joy doubled. Jiang Chengxuan knew exactly how to respond in such a situation, smiling back as he reciprocated the greeting. It was then that the surrounding crowd realized what was happening, and hurriedly approached to congratulate Jiang Chengxuan on his breakthrough. "Congratulations, Vice Sect Master, on your breakthrough to Tao mastery." In the next instant, all the Haoran sect disciples roared their congratulations, their voices thunderous. Thank you, dear fellow disciples." Jiang Chengxuan, in high spirits, responded with a booming voice to all the sect members. This response, like the opening of a gate, led numerous sect elders to approach and greet him. "Chengxuan, congratulations. Truly, you are a rare genius of our Haoran sect." "You flatter me, Elder Cheng. It was merely a fortuitous breakthrough." Standing beside Shen Ruyan, Jiang Chengxuan dealt with the elders' congratulations one by one. "This is a small token of appreciation. I hope you won't refuse." One of the elders, beaming with a smile, presented a spiritual herb, handing it over to Jiang Chengxuan. This act was a subtle tradition. Such gifts, though often not extravagant, represented a gesture of making connections. At this moment, Jiang Chengxuan was in the limelight and was undoubtedly a useful friend to be made, with nearly every elder coming forward to offer congratulations and present gifts, exchanging pleasantries with him. Naturally, Jiang Chengxuan accepted each gift, acknowledging that, as fellow sect members, these modest offerings would eventually be reciprocated. To refuse now would cause misunderstandings, potentially creating an awkward situation. "Chengxuan, congratulations on your Tao mastery achievement." "Junior brother Chengxuan, congratulations." At that moment, 2 familiar figures approached Jiang Chengxuan, his senior brother and sister, Zai Xiangyao and Zhao Tianfen. Their faces were filled with joy, and a hint of envy. "Thank you, senior sister Zai, senior brother Zhao." Joy shared as joy doubled. Jiang Chengxuan responded to them without any pretense, happily accepting their gifts, which put both of them at ease. After exchanging pleasantries, another familiar figure flew towards them. "Chengxuan, congratulations. Our Heoran sect now boasts another great power." It was Elder Leng Yuehua from the Heoran sect. "Senior sister Leng, thank you for your praise. I will surely do my best for our Heoran sect." Jiang Chengxuan, facing this old acquaintance, responded without any hesitation, smiling back. "This is a 10,000-year moonflower, a gift for your celebration." Leng Yuehua said with a light laugh, presenting a gift that astonished all present. This 10,000-year moonflower was the most precious treasure presented so far. It seemed that there was indeed a special relationship between Leng Yuehua and Jiang Chengxuan. Some began to speculate. "No need to be so formal, senior sister Leng. I'll refine it into pills and return half to you." Jiang Chengxuan accepted the gift without hesitation, but added this promise. This gesture showed the significant weight he placed on this gift. His remark surprised many Heoran sect elders further. The 10,000-year moonflower was not a common ingredient. It required an alchemy master of at least level 8 to refine. They had only heard of Jiang Chengxuan being a level 7 alchemist. Could it be that he had also broken through to level 8? In an instant, countless people opened their mouths wide. The more they thought about it, the more shocked they became. This could be said to be the fastest Dao mastery breakthrough, but he was actually a level 8 alchemist at the same time. It was simply terrifying. At this moment, Jiang Chengxuan's weight in their hearts was undoubtedly increased. Even Leng Yuehua, who had given him the treasure, could not help but be slightly shocked. Then she smiled and nodded. It was obvious that Jiang Chengxuan's return gift was very tempting. Moreover, it was just right. After that, the two of them exchanged pleasantries. They had both gained something and bade farewell for the time being. As Leng Yuehua's graceful figure departed, laughter immediately filled the air. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan, upon hearing this sound, immediately knew who had arrived. Or rather, the moment he appeared, everyone sensed his presence, automatically making way for him, his aura overwhelmingly strong. "Chengxuan, congratulations. Hahaha, you truly are my pride, the genius of our Heoran sect." Without a doubt, the newcomer was Qin Shenwu, accompanied by the figure of Zhu Ping. The arrival of two of the Heoran sect's leading figures side by side undoubtedly brought the event to its climax. "Shifu." Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan greeted in unison, then approached them closely. "Congratulations, Chengxuan. The future of our Heoran sect now rests on your shoulders." Sect Master Zhu Ping approached Jiang Chengxuan, his face also full of satisfaction and joy. To tell the truth, after Qin Shenwu's breakthrough to the Mahayana, he had considered stepping down as sect master. Thus Jiang Chengxuan had been given the title of vice sect master. Now, with Jiang Chengxuan's formal breakthrough to Dao mastery, it undoubtedly accelerated Zhu Ping's decision to abdicate. "Shifu, sect master, any accomplishments I have today are all thanks to the cultivation and nurturing of the Heoran sect and yourselves. How can I claim to be a genius?" Facing the two venerable figures, Jiang Chengxuan humbly shook his head with a smile. "Ha, no need to be modest. This is a congratulatory gift from me, accept it." Qin Shenwu's smile had not ceased all day. With a wave in the void, several lotus seeds appeared in his hand, which he then handed to Jiang Chengxuan. "These are seeds of the Taoist black lotus, very helpful for stabilizing realms, perfect for you." Qin Shenwu spoke casually, yet his words caused a stir among the crowd, eliciting gasps of amazement. The Taoist lotus, a treasure from beyond the realm, and these seeds of the Taoist black lotus were incredibly precious. It was said that each seed could save 100 years of arduous cultivation, making this gift no small matter. "Thank you, Shifu." Even Jiang Chengxuan couldn't help but show a look of gratitude, stowing the Taoist black lotus seeds away. A gift from a Mahayana Daolord like Qin Shenwu was indeed no trivial matter. Following that, Sect Master Zhu Ping also stepped forward, presenting his own gift. "Chengxuan, this is 5 elements breath soil. It can enhance the power of the 5 elements Dao rule. I give it to you as a congratulatory gift." Zhu Ping, having been the sect master of Heoran sect for many years, naturally possessed treasures of considerable value. This piece of 5 elements breath soil, though seeming simple, was not much less significant than Qin Shenwu's Taoist black lotus seeds. As an item that could influence the power of Tao rules, it was very useful even for someone at the Tao mastery realm. Moreover, Jiang Chengxuan could also give this treasure to Shen Ruyan for refining, to enhance her power of the 5 elements divine thunder, which would be greatly beneficial for her cultivation. Thank you, Sect Master. Thus, Jiang Chengxuan replied with a radiant smile, taking the gifts from both men into his possession. After exchanging pleasantries for a while, they left time for the other elders to come forward. In the end, the congratulatory ceremony within the Heoran sect lasted a full day and night. The array of treasures presented surpassed what a typical Tao integration cultivator might see in a lifetime. With this, Jiang Chengxuan truly made a fortune, even recovering a good portion of the resources he had expended on his breakthrough preparations. The radiance emanating from Jiang Chengxuan's breakthrough to Tao mastery finally dissipated completely after 7 days. Later, some elders from Thunderclap Valley also visited Jiang Chengxuan to congratulate him. And with Shen Ruyan as a link, the two sects joyfully advanced their relations. It was only then that the tumult of the fastest Tao mastery breakthrough in history truly concluded. In the following days, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan stayed within the new Cloudmist Peak, peacefully enjoying their time together after a century apart. Several days later, Jiang Chengxuan was racing alone within the Heoran sect. This was not because he was up to something secretive. Rather, he was simply trying to avoid interaction, as being spotted by disciples of the Heoran sect would inevitably lead to time-consuming interactions. Today, he had received an invitation from Sect Master Zhu Ping, and was now on his way to the Sect Master Hall, eager not to be delayed. Zhu Ping had not specified the reason for the meeting in his message, but Jiang Chengxuan had his suspicions. Even he, who had broken through to Tao mastery, could not help but feel a little troubled about that matter. Before long, Jiang Chengxuan arrived at the grand entrance of the majestic Sect Master Hall. This place was reserved for the exclusive use of the Heoran Sect Sect Master, including hosting important sect meetings. The Sect Master Hall was incredibly imposing, representing the face of the entire Heoran sect. Only the incumbent Sect Master was entitled to reside, or perhaps more aptly, to guard this place. After all, the Sect Master Hall was home to the sect's strategic treasures, available at the Sect Master's command. Sect Master Chengxuan has arrived. As he entered the hall, Jiang Chengxuan bowed and announced his presence, his voice echoing throughout the vast space. "Ha, come over here, Chengxuan, we've been waiting for you." However, the response came not from Sect Master Zhu Ping, but from his shifu, Qin Shenwu. Without any hesitation, Jiang Chengxuan proceeded deeper into the hall, climbing the steps to the high platform where he saw Zhu Ping and Qin Shenwu standing side by side, looking at him benevolently. "Chengxuan, how stable is your realm now?" Upon meeting, Zhu Ping immediately inquired about Jiang Chengxuan's condition, exchanging a few courteous words. "There are no issues, my realm is stable," Jiang Chengxuan responded, his gaze neither too humble nor arrogant as he looked at Zhu Ping. "Good." The next moment, Zhu Ping's demeanor shifted abruptly, his expression turning grave as he said, "Chengxuan, today, with your shifu as my witness, I intend to abdicate the position of sect master to you. Are you willing to accept?" His words, solemn as thunder, reverberated through the sect master hall, laden with significance. At that instant, Jiang Chengxuan furrowed his brow, and Qin Shenwu's expression also turned serious. This decision had been long in the making, and Jiang Chengxuan had been prepared in his heart. Yet when Zhu Ping actually voiced his intention to pass on the mantle, a sense of unreality and weightiness washed over him. The Heoran sect, a rising overlord force, was not an easy leadership to assume. Like Qin Shenwu and even Zhu Ping, if not for the responsibility and the lack of suitable successors, they would not have wished to take on this role. Now, handing over this position to Jiang Chengxuan, they were passing not only power, but also a profound responsibility. The ascending Heoran sect needed a pioneering leader more than ever. And both Qin Shenwu and Zhu Ping believed they lacked the youthful ambition required for such a role, recognizing that it was time for a younger cultivator like Jiang Chengxuan to step forward. Above in the sect master hall, Zhu Ping and Qin Shenwu awaited Jiang Chengxuan's response. The hall fell into a profound silence, where even a pin drop could be heard. Finally, Jiang Chengxuan raised his head and spoke slowly. "I, Jiang Chengxuan, am willing to accept the position of sect master of the Heoran sect. From this moment on, I will dedicate myself to the welfare of the Heoran sect, tirelessly serve its disciples, and uphold the ethos that if the sect exists, I exist. If the sect perishes, so do I. His resolute oath seemed to have the power to split stone, filled with an unwavering will and determination. Jiang Chengxuan was never one to seek the spotlight. Rather than leading the pack, he preferred to pursue the Tao on his own terms, free from entanglements. However, his achievements in the floodgate realm today were undoubtedly rooted in the foundation provided by the Heoran sect. And the nurturing he received from Qin Shenwu and Zhu Ping had been immensely beneficial. He owed a debt of gratitude and a sense of responsibility, which he was now ready to repay. Moreover, considering the entire Heoran sect, there truly was no better candidate than him. In terms of reputation, he was almost on par with his Shifu, Qin Shenwu. In terms of strength, he had long since proven himself through his deeds. In terms of talent and capability, no one else possessed the confidence that he did. At this point, he was placed on a high pedestal, and the position of sect master was such that anyone else in his place might face dissent. Because of his presence, it would be difficult for others to command the same respect. Censure, heaven grants this opportunity, and to not accept it would be to incur its censure. After thorough consideration, Jiang Chengxuan resolutely agreed. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Hearing Jiang Chengxuan's acceptance, Zhu Ping's face lit up with joy, the excitement of a generation sect master palpable as he repeated his approval thrice. Qin Shenwu also showed a look of relief and joy. After so many years, his disciple had finally achieved renown and authority, becoming a dominant leader. As the sect master of the Heoran sect, his status was now immensely prestigious, ranking among the top 10 in the floodgate realm. Chengxuan, from today onwards, the Heoran sect is in your hands. I hope you can lead it to greater heights. In that moment, Zhu Ping's emotions were complex, but ultimately he passed the symbol of the sect master to Jiang Chengxuan. He recalled much at that moment, the days of his youth when he joined the Heoran sect, his rise through numerous challenges with great vigor, and eventually taking on the mantle of sect master. Under his leadership, the Heoran sect had navigated through perilous times and undoubtedly improved. He felt he had fulfilled the legacy passed down by the previous sect master. Overwhelmed with a mixture of feelings, Zhu Ping's gaze was intensely emotional. The sect master token was accepted by Jiang Chengxuan with both hands. Then with a grand gesture by Zhu Ping, the entire sect master hall burst into brilliant light, releasing an ancient aura as mystical forces flowed down, unlocking the restrictions on the sect master token. Chengxuan, inscribe your Dao marks. Zhu Ping instructed, now that the token had been cleansed of his aura and lay unclaimed. This procedure could only be completed within the sect master hall, so the token was safe from being misplaced. Okay. Jiang Chengxuan responded solemnly. Then with a gesture, his body's Tao rules manifested. The great Tao rule of 5 elements, samsara and creation converged, and were inscribed onto the sect master token. This was now the best symbol of Jiang Chengxuan's identity. Rumble. The sect master hall trembled mightily as the token burst forth with stunning radiance. In that instant, Jiang Chengxuan felt new, indescribable connections forming in his heart. Towards the sect master hall and the entire Heoran sect, he felt a strange affinity as if they could understand his words. This solemn occasion was thus simply concluded. From that moment, Jiang Chengxuan officially became the sect master of the Heoran sect. Ding! Just then, a system notification echoed in Jiang Chengxuan's mind. Congratulations, host, for achieving the milestone of inheriting the position of sect master of the Heoran sect. Reward, immortal blessing Jade token. Upon use, receive the blessing of the immortal beings from the Heoran sect in the immortal realm for 1 breath's time, granting the combat power of an immortal. Hearing this, Jiang Chengxuan's heart skipped a beat. This reward, linked to the immortal realm, allowed the user to momentarily possess the combat power of an immortal. It was an astonishingly powerful tool, equivalent to a life-saving trump card. Indeed, taking on the enormous responsibility of the Heoran sect's sect master had brought with it significant rewards. Jiang Chengxuan's resolve as the new sect master was reinforced, fully embracing his role at the pinnacle of the Heoran sect. Ha ha ha, Zhu Ping, now greet the sect master. Having relinquished the burdens of sect master, Zhu Ping felt noticeably lighter, joking cheerfully for the first time in many years. Hearing this, Jiang Chengxuan could only smile. Ha ha ha, Chengxuan, the burdens of a sect master are not light. Prepare yourself well. Qin Shenwu chimed in, approaching Jiang Chengxuan and patting his shoulder. As the sole Mahayana Dailord within the sect, his status was essentially on par with that of the sect master. Yes, although the task is daunting, I will certainly not let the Heoran sect down, Jiang Chengxuan replied firmly, knowing that from now on, all his decisions must prioritize the sect's interests. All right, Chengxuan, let me use the last of my energy to help you get acquainted with the treasures exclusive to the sect master. Following this, under Zhu Ping's guidance, Jiang Chengxuan quickly became familiar with the responsibilities and the vast array of powers available to the sect master. He gained a deeper understanding of the specific rights and capabilities that came with the role. Among the most important were the powers related to the immortal ancestors of the Heoran sect in the higher realms. These included the privilege to request immortal treasures projection and power enhancement, as well as the ability to communicate with the immortal ancestors of the Heoran sect in the mysterious realms above. These two powers were exclusive to the holder of the sect master token. Requesting immortal treasure projection involved invoking the power of immortal beings to enhance one's dharmic power temporarily, breaking through limits. The extent of immortal power one could harness was directly proportional to the individual's capacity to withstand it, making it a formidable tool. Communicating with immortal ancestors was a more abstract way to leverage immortal power. It was clear that as the sect master of the Heoran sect, one could indeed make contact with immortal beings above. But the specifics of how these interactions would influence the lower realms were less certain. Perhaps these connections were related to the causality and the ability to comprehend the heavenly secrets that came with the role of sect master. At least for Jiang Chengxuan, who possessed the 6th level of heavenly calculation technique, he had a clear feeling of the connection. In Jiang Chengxuan's intuition, it seemed as though a line connected him directly to the higher realms. In that distant world, there seemed to be an entity already linked to him by karma. However, without attempting to use this karmic connection, he could not be certain what could be transmitted through it. Of these two abilities, Zhu Ping had only ever used the immortal treasure projection during his years as sect master. Under the enhancement of an immortal treasure projection, one could almost overpower an opponent of the same level, and even combat a Mahayana Dailord was not out of the question. As for the authority to contact immortal ancestors, Zhu Ping had never used it, as its effects were profound and mysterious, and its specific utility remained unknown. By comparison, the immortal treasure projection was much more reliable. These two powerful capabilities naturally could not be used without limits, which is why opportunities to contact the higher realms were not wasted, given their elusive nature. Perhaps only in times of absolute despair, with no other options left, would the sect consider using it as a gamble against fate. After explaining these two critical powers, Zhu Ping then went on to detail the duties of a sect master to Jiang Chengxuan, as well as sharing insights from his years in the position. He also discussed the relationships with other sects connected to the Heoran sect, including both collaborations and grievances, leaving no detail unshared with Jiang Chengxuan. This information was crucial for Jiang to decide on the strategic direction of the Heoran sect in the future. Even the relationships among the various elders within the sect and their individual grievances were disclosed to Jiang by Zhu Ping, which truly broadened his horizons. Given the complex interrelations among the many elders of the Heoran sect, understanding these dynamics was no small feat. However, as a Tao mastery, remembering this information was not difficult for Jiang Chengxuan, and merely being aware of these details was sufficient without needing to focus too intensely on them. After all, under the sect master, there were various organizations to assist with the administration, so not everything needed his detailed attention. Finally, after a lengthy transition period, Zhu Ping had fully informed the new sect master, Jiang Chengxuan, of the duties, rights, and responsibilities of the Heoran sect's leadership. All right, Chengxuan, I have done what I can. From here on out, it is up to you. Zhu Ping, having completed everything, felt not tired but more spirited. Now, he could finally pursue his cultivation breakthroughs without any distractions. Watching Qin Shenwu achieve the status of a Mahayana Dailord had long inspired him. And after the 5 Realms battle, he had gained many insights and made substantial progress, increasing his chances of breakthrough. Thank you, Sect Master. Jiang Chengxuan said to Zhu Ping, who simply waved his hand and then added, "News of your succession will soon spread throughout the floodgate realm, and it will be a great celebration for our Heoran sect." What he referred to were the internal and external inauguration ceremonies. One ceremony was internal, to inform all disciples and elders and to celebrate together. The other was to announce to the entire floodgate realm, inviting all sects to join in a grand celebration. Both ceremonies would be organized by the sect's dedicated team responsible for the transition of the sect master. In the meantime, news of Jiang Chengxuan's succession as sect master had already spread throughout the Heoran sect. By the day after Zhu Ping's official abdication, all the elders within the Heoran sect had been informed of this development. Naturally, everyone was shocked and initially at a loss for words. Although Jiang Chengxuan's succession had been certain, no one had anticipated that it would come so swiftly. Those who had once harbored ambitions for the position had their hopes dashed. They knew that if Jiang Chengxuan had no intention of declining, no one could challenge his position. After all, the difference between them was clear. Jiang Chengxuan was destined to become a Mahayana Dailord. For most, learning of this news was surreal. The disciple they had once seen arrive at the sect had now become their supreme leader. Some went to Zhu Ping or his confidants to confirm the news, receiving nothing but affirmation. Jiang Chengxuan had truly taken over as the sect master of the Heoran sect. And even the sect master token and all duties had been fully transferred. As this news spread from the elders to the disciples, it caused yet another stir. Not long after Jiang Chengxuan's breakthrough to Tao mastery, another shocking piece of news had emerged. And again, it involved the same protagonist. Countless disciples of the Heoran sect and fans of Jiang Chengxuan were thrilled. To say that Jiang Chengxuan's assumption of the role of sect master was the expectation of many would be an understatement, especially among the younger generation of disciples who represented the future of the Heoran sect. To nearly 80% of these future stewards, Jiang Chengxuan had become both a role model and a target of aspiration. As soon as the Heoran sect's organization responsible for conducting ceremonies started preparations, the authenticity of this succession became undeniable to everyone. The entire Heoran sect began to bustle with activity, decorating and preparing for the celebrations. The festive colors were laid across the vast territories of the sect, and both elders and disciples consciously played their parts. In just a few days, everyone had accepted the news of Jiang Chengxuan's succession as sect master, embodying the collective will of the Heoran sect. Jiang Chengxuan had become a legend, with an unshakable status within the sect. The celebratory atmosphere permeated the entire Heoran sect, and in such a spirit, Jiang Chengxuan's inauguration ceremony quickly approached. On the day of the ceremony, the entire Heoran sect was adorned with red and colorful precious silks. Every disciple donned the official ceremonial attire, which was strikingly beautiful. At the main entrance of the sect master hall, the largest sacrificial altar of the Heoran sect was prepared. On the platform, surrounded by midair, countless disciples and elders in uniform eagerly awaited the start of the ceremony. At the very center of the altar stood three figures, Zhu Ping, Qin Shenwu, and Jiang Chengxuan. These three represented the most powerful and highest-ranking individuals of the Heoran sect. All the offerings were arranged on a grand sacrificial table, and celestial incense burned, sending curls of fragrant smoke into the air, making the altar seem like a realm of the immortals. The inauguration ceremony begins now. With the declaration of the ceremony official, numerous horns sounded in unison and drums echoed throughout. Various auspicious beasts emerged from the ritual instruments, soaring above the altar in a spectacular display. On the platform, Jiang Chengxuan stood with a majestic and solemn demeanor, radiating authority. Opposite him, Zhu Ping and Qin Shenwu, dressed in ceremonial robes, awaited the beginning of the abdication ritual. As the drums and horns played in unison, the atmosphere at the celestial altar finally reached its climax. The sky was filled with auspicious clouds and radiant light, while numerous mythical beasts dominated the four corners, exuding an imposing presence. The disciples and elders of the Heoran sect were also swept up in heightened emotions, their eyes fixed intently on the three figures standing on the high platform. When the auspicious time arrived, marked by the shining of the lucky star, Zhu Ping and Qin Shenwu finally made their move. They stood tall and approached Jiang Chengxuan with measured steps, their ceremonial robes fluttering with grace. The two approached Jiang Chengxuan and began tracing mysterious patterns in the air with their hands while chanting ritual words, circling around him until the incantation was complete. The next moment, celestial light shone down from the high heavens, enveloping Jiang Chengxuan. Bathed in this divine light, his demeanor transformed, becoming almost celestial in nature. At that moment, the ceremony was officially completed. The title of Sect Master of the Heoran sect was formally transferred to Jiang Chengxuan, with the approval of the celestial ancestors. The new sect master of the Heoran sect, from today onward, is Jiang Chengxuan. Any disrespect towards him will be regarded as enmity towards our Heoran sect. After the handover ceremony, Zhu Ping brought Jiang Chengxuan forward and announced loudly to all members of the Heoran sect. Sect Master Jiang Chengxuan, Sect Master Jiang Chengxuan, Sect Master. Countless disciples of the Heoran sect spontaneously joined in the chant. As Jiang Chengxuan looked around at all the members of the Heoran sect gathered at the celestial altar, he felt a surge of responsibility. From this moment on, these people were all connected to him. Jiang Chengxuan then delivered an inspiring speech to the disciples of the Heoran sect and announced an increase in benefits for all disciples, distributing cultivation resources such as pills, talismans, and magical tools on the spot, further securing the loyalty of many. For Jiang Chengxuan, distributing mid to low-level pills was trivial, considering the vast resources at his disposal. Thus, the internal inauguration ceremony of the Heoran sect was completed successfully, and from this day forward, Jiang Chengxuan officially became the universally supported new sect master of the Heoran sect. However, the process of taking over as sect master of the Heoran sect was not entirely complete. Next, a ceremony to announce his elevation to the entire floodgate realm was to be held. Soon, invitations for the inauguration ceremony of the new sect master of the Heoran sect, signed by Jiang Chengxuan, were sent out to nearly every sect in the floodgate realm. This excluded rivals such as the Five Elements Heaven sect and the Xianxia Hall to avoid potential conflicts. When the invitation reached powerful sects like the Pantheon sect, the Flying Gate, the Qian family, and other influential powers, their high-ranking members were all taken aback. Although Jiang Chengxuan had already made a name for himself during the Five Realms War, and the rise of the Heoran sect had been unstoppable thereafter, it was shocking that just 200 years had passed without any significant events, and suddenly, the Heoran sect was changing its sect master. Had it not been for Jiang Chengxuan's role as vice sect master paving the way, they might have suspected internal strife within the Heoran sect. After all, disputes within a sect over leadership are not uncommon. Clearly, they were not yet aware of Jiang Chengxuan's breakthrough to the Tao mastery realm. If they had known, their reaction might have been even more profound. As a newly emerging dominant force in the floodgate realm, no one dared to decline Jiang Chengxuan's invitation. Even those who might harbor resentment towards him would not dare show disrespect towards the entire Heoran sect. Days later, these sects accepted the invitation to attend the inauguration ceremony of the new sect master of the Heoran sect, and news of their participation was sent back to the Heoran sect. At the same time, discussions in the floodgate realm began to heat up. The name Jiang Chengxuan was familiar to the cultivators of the floodgate realm, but associating it with the sect master of the Heoran sect was still somewhat awkward. As the date of the Heoran sect's grand ceremony approached, even solitary cultivators sought to join the excitement, recognizing the significance of the event for the entire realm's power dynamics. Such festive occasions were also prime opportunities for these solitary cultivators to gain some small benefits, as a sect as generous as the Heoran sect would not be petty. A festive and fervent atmosphere quietly began to spread throughout the entire floodgate realm, showcasing the influence of the Heoran sect. However, there were a few exceptions, namely the rival sects of the Heoran sect. Jiang Chengxuan, that scourge has become the sect master of the Heoran sect, grumbled a leader from one of these rival factions. The Heoran sect sent invitations to all sects but deliberately excluded us. This is an outrageous insult, another leader complained. The leaders of the Five Elements Heaven sect, the Xianxia sect, and the Eternal Sword sect were all seething with anger. Despite their frustrations, they dared not provoke the Heoran sect, which was at the height of its power. Damn it, do they really think they've become the overlords? Such disregard for us will make sure the Heoran sect regrets this one day. In response to their situation, They could only curse and strictly forbid their disciples from attending the Haoran sect's ceremony. This was their only form of protest available. As the day of the Haoran sect's grand inauguration ceremony approached, all eyes were on them, paying little heed to the petty grievances of the five elements Heaven sect and others. Soon, the long-awaited day of the grand ceremony arrived, and the floodgate realm buzzed with unprecedented activity. The Haoran sect's domain, in particular, was a hive of excitement. Sects from north to south, who were eager to forge ties or simply witness the grand event, sent representatives. Each delegation arrived bearing gifts, representing their respective powers. Many sects, despite not having direct disputes with the Haoran sect, harbored subtle rivalries with each other. Thus, the presentation of gifts became a stage for them to subtly compete and outdo each other. On this day, the protective barriers of the Haoran sect were wide open. Qin Shenwu sat alone at the highest peak, his aura subtly leaking out, deterring any malicious intentions. Meanwhile, Jiang Chengxuan stood with his hands behind his back atop the cloudmist peak, accompanied by Shen Ruyan. They watched as various guests entered the Haoran sect. This spot was the most conspicuous within the Haoran sect, and nearly every visitor couldn't help but glance in their direction. On Cloudmist Peak, only high-ranking members of other sects could clearly see Jiang Chengxuan and respectfully bowed from a distance, to which he politely responded. It was then that some perceptive individuals began to realize Jiang Chengxuan's extraordinary status. It seemed he had already reached the realm of Tao mastery, a discovery that undeniably shocked them. As the representatives from various sects mingled with the Haoran sect's elders and exchanged pleasantries, they learned that Jiang Chengxuan had indeed broken through to the Tao mastery realm, and that too in just 200 years. The towering Cloudmist Peak stood as proof of his achievement. Those who heard this news were visibly shaken, contemplating whether their gifts were sufficiently grand to honor such a momentous occasion. As the auspicious moment arrived and all guests were present, the celestial altar of the Haoran sect was bustling with activity. This time, those seated in the inner circle of the celestial altar were the high-ranking members of various sects. As the ceremony commenced with the playing of ritual music, similar to the previous succession ceremony, mythical beasts soared and radiant light spread under the sounds of drums and horns, creating an ethereal atmosphere. Jiang Chengxuan, dressed in the formal attire of the sect master of the Haoran sect, appeared at the highest platform, hand in hand with Shen Ruyan. The necessary procedures were quite similar to those of the succession ceremony but on a grander scale, and this time, Shen Ruyan was by his side. In such a diplomatic setting, it was appropriate for Shen Ruyan, as Jiang Chengxuan's partner, to appear together. Moreover, the people of Thunderclap Valley also preferred this, as it demonstrated the close relationship between the two sects. Following them, Qin Shenwu and Zhu Ping arrived side by side, their formidable presence awe-inspiring. In front of the guests from various sects, they did not restrain their auras but displayed their formidable presence openly, completing the ascension ritual for Jiang Chengxuan once again. Jiang Chengxuan, too, displayed his strength unabashedly, bathed in celestial light, commanding and dignified. The display of strength by the three of them undoubtedly shocked all the sects present, reinforced by the celestial light from the upper realms. This demonstrated the profound foundation of the Haoran sect, which was now under Jiang Chengxuan's control. The main purpose of the grand ceremony was to formalize this fact. Once the ascension ritual was completed, the formal exchange of greetings and gifts began. Jiang Chengxuan, accompanied by Shen Ruyan, descended to personally greet and get acquainted with the leaders of each sect, discussing matters concerning relations between their sects. Then the time came to present the gifts, which were announced loudly by an appointed announcer. The Cayenne family presents a treasure money tree, wishing sect master Jiang prosperity. The Flying Gate presents a heaven-connecting spiritual treasure, wishing sect master Jiang. The Northern Region's Extreme Yin sect presents a polar dragon flower. The Northern Region's Frozen Heavens doorway presents a box of ice essence. The Western Region's Tianju sect presents a nine-hearted spirit bull herb. Representatives from sects across the floodgate realm, from the northern to the western regions, gathered to present their gifts, making the occasion even more spectacular. These were the forces that had received Jiang Chengxuan's assistance during the Five Realms War, and they were now repaying their gratitude. Among them, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan saw many old acquaintances, such as Saint Extreme Yin and Saint Frozen Heavens, who had personally come to present their gifts. After a long time without seeing each other, their reunion involved lengthy exchanges of pleasantries. The Pantheon sect presents an arcane celestial treasure, wishing sect master Jiang a prosperous martial future. This announcement undoubtedly stunned everyone present. The Pantheon sect had given Jiang Chengxuan such a significant gift, raising questions about the depth of their relationship. Even for a lavish sect like the Pantheon, an arcane celestial treasure was typically reserved for use by the sect's Daelords. The crowd turned towards the Pantheon sect's delegation, and even Jiang Chengxuan was taken aback. Leading the Pantheon sect's delegation was none other than the Daelord of the Pantheon sect. Even Qin Shenwu raised an eyebrow in surprise at his presence. "Daelord of the Pantheon, your visit honors our sect immensely," Jiang Chengxuan said, welcoming the esteemed guest. Despite it being their first meeting, the cordiality displayed by the Daelord of the Pantheon left a good impression on Jiang Chengxuan. The Daelord's gift was indeed generous. "Too kind, too kind." Jiang Chengxuan responded with a smile, engaging in a conversation that, despite being their first, was surprisingly congenial. After this small interlude, the grand ceremony continued without any further surprises and concluded successfully. Jiang Chengxuan now had a good understanding of the forces within the Floodgate realm, and the sect leaders who attended today were now acquaintances. Future collaborations between the sects would likely proceed smoothly, which was one of the significances of this ascension ceremony. As the drums fell silent and the banquet ended, the Haoran sect, crowded with people, returned to tranquility amid farewells. Jiang Chengxuan watched as the guests departed, finally allowing himself a moment of relaxation. Just then, his master, Qin Shenwu, approached with a light chuckle, clapping Jiang Chengxuan on the shoulder, about to share some words of encouragement or perhaps a casual comment. However, his attention was suddenly drawn to an unexpected visitor. "Daelord of the Pantheon, it's been a long time," Qin Shenwu greeted warmly, standing beside Jiang Chengxuan as they both faced the newcomer, today's leader of the Pantheon sect's delegation, the Daelord himself. "Daelord, what brings you here alone? Is there something that still needs to be addressed?" Jiang Chengxuan asked politely, acknowledging their newfound acquaintance from earlier in the day. "Indeed," the Daelord of the Pantheon began, nodding first at Qin Shenwu before addressing both of them. "Today, besides congratulating the new sect master of the Haoran sect, I also came to deliver a piece of news that I thought you should know." He smiled at Jiang Chengxuan and Qin Shenwu, who both sensed that there was more to his visit than just ceremonial pleasantries. The presence of such a high-ranking figure at a routine ceremony was unusual. Given Jiang Chengxuan's speculation during the day that there might be more to the Daelord's visit, he was prepared for a significant revelation. Please speak, Daelord. If there's any way we can assist, I'm all ears," Jiang Chengxuan responded, inviting the Daelord to continue. "In fact, my Pantheon sect recently discovered an ancient ruin in the outer territories, believed to be the cave abode of an immortal." The Daelord's announcement caused both Jiang Chengxuan and Qin Shenwu to take a sharp intake of breath. This was clearly no trivial matter. It was something that would warrant the personal attention of a Daelord. A celestial cave dwelling. The significance of such words was clear to any cultivator. Anything related to immortals invariably involved unparalleled secrets and treasures. And Jiang Chengxuan prompted, eager to hear more. "Since I've mentioned it, naturally, there's only one request I have," the Daelord continued. "I hope that Daelord Shenwu and sect master Jiang can join forces with my Pantheon sect to explore it. The treasures within we would distribute according to each party's contributions." This was precisely the sort of proposal Jiang Chengxuan had been hoping for. The Daelord was not only sharing potentially monumental information, but also offering a share in the discovery, likely seeing potential in Jiang Chengxuan's capabilities and the reputation of the Haoran sect. Perhaps he was also banking on Jiang Chengxuan's emerging influence and the inherent integrity of the Haoran sect. The Daelord of the Pantheon looked at Qin Shenwu and Jiang Chengxuan with a confident gaze, convinced that the lure of an immortal's cave abode was irresistible to any cultivator. Throughout the annals of the Floodgate realm, the discovery of an immortal's cave abode has been a rarity, one that could be counted on the fingers of one's hands. Each discovery has heralded the emergence of earth-shattering treasures, some even possessing the miraculous power to aid one in achieving Tao and ascending to immortality. Such treasures could move even the stoniest of hearts, compelling one to brave dangers. Thus, he believed that both Jiang Chengxuan and Qin Shenwu would naturally not refuse such an opportunity. However, the perils involved are unspeakable. Inside the immortal's cave abode, the more exquisite the treasure, the greater the horrors that accompany it. It has been said that even a Daelord of Mahayana realm once fell within an immortal's cave abode due to greed. Such is the level of terror. At times, immortals themselves have manifested in the mortal world, brawling within the cave abode to contest over these fateful treasures. Even immortals covet them, making the prospect even more daunting. How about it? I don't mean to conceal the risk from you. Where there is great risk, there is also great opportunity. I trust you understand, said the Daelord from the Pantheon sect, continuing to persuade Jiang Chengxuan and Qin Shenwu. He believed that given their strength and confidence, they would certainly not casually forsake such an opportunity. That's why he chose Qin Shenwu and Jiang Chengxuan. Both are bold yet cautious, and moreover, they are both formidable in their own right. This is the good reputation that the Haoran sect has cultivated over the years. If it were Nanning Daelord or the likes from the Kainkun Palace, the Daelord of the Pantheon sect would definitely not invite them. Even if they had the courage, he wouldn't trust them under any circumstances. Without trust, what use is there in numbers? They would only be a burden. Strength, courage, and loyalty, these are indispensable qualities he looks for in a companion. And in the entire Floodgate realm, only Qin Shenwu and Jiang Chengxuan truly fit the bill and are also acquaintances of his. Daelord, could you elaborate more on the situation regarding that immortal's cave abode? After pondering for a moment, Jiang Chengxuan and his shifu, Qin Shenwu, exchanged glances and slowly inquired. They were well aware of the dangers of the immortal's cave abode. Yet in the path of cultivation, what is ever completely safe? Moreover, such an opportunity is truly rare. The Daelord from the Pantheon sect had not guessed wrong. Both men were deeply interested in the immortal's cave abode. Hearing their words, the Daelord's face displayed even more composure. Undoubtedly, Jiang Chengxuan and Qin Shenwu had already expressed their willingness to go. Thus, he smiled lightly and began to explain the details of the immortal's cave abode to them. That ancient immortal's cave abode was discovered in a remote extraterrestrial space, though its exact location still needs to be determined. But we can be certain of its general direction, and with careful exploration, we should be able to find the entrance. Upon hearing this, Jiang Chengxuan understood. What the Daelord from the Pantheon sect described was merely a tip, and probably not very secretive. Likely, other powers within the Floodgate realm were already aware, not just an exclusive piece of information for the Pantheon sect. By sharing this location, the Daelord was essentially doing them a favor, then seeking a reliable partner in return. But Jiang Chengxuan had his own calculations. That is, forming an alliance with the Pantheon sect was indeed a good strategy. After all, within the entire Floodgate realm, the Pantheon sect is a highly established power, subtly dominating. And their reputation has always been good. They have also earned much goodwill during the War of the Five Realms, combating the demonic beings from different races just as resolutely. Joining forces with the Pantheon sect, an alliance between the Haoran sect and the Pantheon sect, would indeed be a mutually beneficial union of strengths. Jiang Chengxuan remained silent, his eyes expressing everything. He looked towards Qin Shenwu, then back at the Daelord from the Pantheon sect, and without speaking, all three understood each other's intentions. It seems this immortal's cave abode is not just about the dangers within. Jiang Chengxuan smiled and said, this clearly indicated that besides the perils inside the immortal's cave abode, there were external competitors to contend with. He hinted that he already knew that other sects were aware of this information. Indeed, otherwise, I wouldn't have sought to cooperate with you too. The Daelord from the Pantheon sect also smiled, laying his cards on the table. Given that the sects aware of this information are not few, if the cave abode is entered by all, our chances would be significantly diminished. It might be better if our two sects join forces. This way, we can locate the entrance before others and share the fortunes equally between us. The Daelord from the Pantheon sect laid out his plans straightforwardly, recognizing that it was unlikely for one sect to dominate alone. He thus proposed a joint venture, aiming to push out other competitors. Since you are straightforward, I won't be secretive either. This partnership could indeed be feasible. However, could there be more details about this immortal's cave abode available? To this, Jiang Chengxuan still responded coolly. His concern was what exactly lay within the cave abode. If it were mere trifles, he might not consider taking the risk. After all, with other forces now involved, and it being an ancient immortal's cave abode, the risks were undoubtedly substantial. Of course, replied the Daelord from the Pantheon sect, no longer withholding any information, and slowly continued. That immortal's cave abode is an ancient relic left in the extraterrestrial realms by a certain immortal, so there is no need to worry about it having an owner. Moreover, according to the elder ancestors from our upper realm, the cave abode still contains many treasures left by that ancient immortal. Even opportunities that could potentially allow one to ascend are present. Opportunities for ascension. These words undoubtedly stirred the hearts of both Qin Shenwu and Jiang Chengxuan anew. Even the Daelord from the Pantheon sect, upon uttering these words, could not suppress his fervent expression. Such treasures, except for those who dwell in the immortal realm, who would not be moved. Moreover, if the chance for ascension came from an immortal, then its likelihood of being genuine was quite high. Perhaps that very immortal had ascended using this method as well. Is it really so? Such an opportunity could attract countless Daelords of Mahayana to compete fiercely. At this point, even Qin Shenwu could not help but interject. Such an opportunity would tempt all Daelords of Mahayana to vie desperately. Most likely, after all, it's from ancient times, and moreover, there is a sensation of the immortal's essence within it. The Daelord from the Pantheon sect spoke slowly. His sect being an established one with immortal ancestors, hence had such detailed information. Aware of the opportunity related to the immortal's origin. Concerning the essence of an immortal, even if it does not directly assist one to ascend, it can still increase the odds somewhat. Such an opportunity excited both Jiang Chengxuan and Qin Shenwu. They pondered for a long time, and the Daelord from the Pantheon sect was patient, quietly waiting. Jiang Chengxuan was genuinely interested in the immortal's cave abode. Especially if it harbored the chance for ascension, it could propel Qin Shenwu to a higher plane, allowing him to ascend to the immortal realm successfully. Then, as the sect master of the Haoran sect, he could truly dominate the floodgate realm. Qin Shenwu, needless to say, was deeply interested given it concerned ascension. With such a pursuit of opportunity, they both had some confidence, especially with the cooperation of the Daelord from the Pantheon sect. Such benefits were enough to warrant their taking the risk. In fact, it will be a few hundred years before the immortal's cave abode opens, if you gentlemen have any concerns. Just as they were prepared to agree, the Daelord from the Pantheon sect further reassured them, eliminating any lingering worries they might have. Excellent, since the Daelord is so sincere, we, master and disciple, will surely accompany you when the time comes. Jiang Chengxuan glanced at Qin Shenwu, who also nodded slightly. Immediately, he affirmed to the Daelord from the Pantheon sect. Hearing this, the Daelord from the Pantheon sect finally breathed a sigh of relief, thoroughly pleased. This added significantly to his sect's confidence in exploring the immortal's cave abode. After all, regarding the treasures within, they were determined to obtain them, even if it meant sharing with others. Compared to other forces, they were more aware of the preciousness of these opportunities, which is why they took the initiative to invite the Haoran sect. This would undoubtedly catch other forces off guard. Then let's settle on this arrangement. When the day the cave abode is about to open approaches, I will come and inform you both to proceed together. Farewell. Having achieved his goal, the Daelord from the Pantheon sect did not linger. After bidding farewell to Jiang Chengxuan and Qin Shenwu, he transformed into an invisible light and disappeared outside the Haoran sect. Shifu, this Daelord from the Pantheon sect, can he be trusted? Once the Daelord had left, Jiang Chengxuan slowly asked. He is somewhat similar to our Haoran sect in demeanor, cultivating with a heart of righteousness. Qin Shenwu thus spoke, knowing more about the Daelord from the Pantheon sect. Hearing this, Jiang Chengxuan also nodded. With that settled, they would quietly await the day the opportunity arose. Do not doubt those you use, do not use those you doubt. From this moment the Daelord from the Pantheon sect was a steadfast ally of the Haoran sect. However, going to the extraterrestrial realm was somewhat regrettable, as they could no longer bring along the Thunderclap Valley. After all, traveling to extraterrestrial realms required the lead of a Mahayana Daelord. But upon returning to Cloud Mist Peak, Jiang Chengxuan informed Shen Ruyan of the matters regarding the immortal's cave abode. Naturally, he would not conceal anything from his Dao companion. She also fully supported his decision, and if conditions allowed, Jiang Chengxuan would surely take Shen Ruyan with him. The days thereafter gradually entered a phase of calm. Jiang Chengxuan had taken over as the head of the Heoran sect, spending his days managing general affairs, using the remaining time for cultivation with Shen Ruyan. During this period, he often received invitations from other mastery-level cultivators to participate in various Dao Mastery Exchange conferences. Such conferences were typically only accessible to cultivators of Dao Mastery level. The powerful from various parts of the Floodgate realm would gather to exchange techniques, discuss the Dao, and foster relationships. More importantly, these Dao Mastery Exchange conferences often featured trade fairs where items were bartered. Here, one could encounter treasures only accessible to those of Dao Mastery level, rarely shown in public otherwise. At this moment, Jiang Chengxuan was walking through the marketplace at the Dao Mastery Exchange Conference. This place was an extraordinary space, created through the power of treasures. Enveloped in mist and abundant in spiritual energy, adorned with exotic flowers and rare animals. Here, outside cultivators couldn't pry, allowing everyone to display their cherished possessions for exchange. Is this the samsara bead? Jiang Chengxuan stopped before a cultivator and asked in surprise. It was an item imbued with the essence of samsara, capable of bringing new dimensions to his Tao of samsara. And certainly, an item he found worthy of interest. Sharp eyes indeed it is. The cultivator facing Jiang Chengxuan, needless to say, was also a Dao Mastery-level cultivator. How might this treasure be acquired? Please speak freely. Without any hesitation, Jiang Chengxuan got straight to the point. After all, those who have cultivated to the realm of Dao Mastery are seasoned and shrewd. Circumlocution would be futile. At the conference, the only thing that mattered was who had more to offer. Not much, just a quasi-immortal medicine will suffice. The blue-robed cultivator spoke slowly. This price immediately made Jiang Chengxuan frown. It was indeed steep. That might be inappropriate. How about adding a minor samsara bead as well? How does that sound? Faced with Jiang Chengxuan's questioning, the blue-robed cultivator clearly knew he was at a disadvantage and thus sweetened the deal. He knew the value of the samsara bead, but for him, it wasn't of much use. However, for Jiang Chengxuan, it was different. He still wanted to make this deal work if possible. After hearing this, Jiang Chengxuan pondered for a moment. As the sect master of the Heoran sect, he could certainly afford it, especially since it was just quasi-immortal medicine. In the New World's medicine fields, the Heoran sect had managed to cultivate a few. As far as I know, these samsara beads typically appear in sets of 3. Eventually, Jiang Chengxuan slowly stated. The Dao Mastery cultivator on the other side widened his eyes at this, clearly not expecting his counterpart to know so much about this treasure. Indeed, 3 beads can be exchanged for a quasi-immortal medicine, but which specific quasi-immortal medicine will still need to be seen. Finally, the blue-robed cultivator conceded a step. As long as the quasi-immortal medicine suited his Dao, he would be willing to take this slight loss. Very well. Jiang Chengxuan smiled and took out a treasure box from his body, inside which was a plant burning with true sun fire. This is a 9 revolutions true yang plant. How about this? The 9 revolutions true yang plant, a quasi-immortal medicine, could allow a mastery-level cultivator to foster 9 revolutions of true sun energy within their spirit. Be it in enlightenment, combat, or prolonging life, it was said to have miraculous effects. Done, it's a deal. With this all-purpose quasi-immortal medicine, Jiang Chengxuan quickly obtained 3 reincarnation pearls. After parting ways, Jiang Chengxuan lingered a bit longer at the Dao Mastery Exchange Conference, before eventually leaving the event. In fact, during this period, Jiang Chengxuan had attended several Dao Mastery-level exchanges, acquiring many resources beneficial to himself, thereby significantly enhancing his own foundation. In preparation for the enigmatic opening of the Immortal's cave abode, Jiang Chengxuan never slackened his efforts, always contemplating how to advance his cultivation. Roaming the various Dao Mastery Exchange conferences, he reaped substantial benefits, and with the renown of the Heoran sect, he always managed to acquire the treasures he desired. Naturally, those cultivators were willing to engage in equitable exchanges, while also seizing the opportunity to forge connections with the master of the Haoran sect. During this time, with a wealth of resources accumulated, Jiang Chengxuan made considerable progress in both his magical and Taoist practices, even comprehending numerous divine abilities. Furthermore, with his mastery over 100 cultivation arts, his cultivation resources continually regenerated and recycled, a process so efficient that it was the envy of all. He converted these resources into pills, formations, and weapons, with any surplus available for trade, further enhancing Jiang Chengxuan's reputation in a different light at the exchange conferences. With deep pockets and abundant resources, this was his truest portrayal. Under his patronage, even Shen Ruyan, Jiang Anren, and others no longer worried about finding suitable cultivation resources, and their cultivation progressed by leaps and bounds. Simultaneously, two individuals closely associated with Jiang Chengxuan were in seclusion. Thanks to his assistance, they were on the verge of a breakthrough to the Tao integration realm today, poised to become pillars of the Haoran sect. These two were none other than Jiang Chengxuan's senior sister and brother, Zai Xiangyao and Zhao Tianfen. Inspired by Jiang Chengxuan's advancement to Tao mastery, they trained even harder than usual. After all, Jiang Chengxuan joined the Haoran sect much later than they did and was their junior brother. Yet now, he had already ascended to the position of sect master. How could they not feel spurred on? Moreover, the upheavals and the dispersal of cosmic energies on the day of Jiang Chengxuan's breakthrough also brought significant gains to Zai Xiangyao and Zhao Tianfen. The two exhausted their savings to prepare materials, seizing the opportunity, and had remained in seclusion until today when finally, there was a stir. In Zai Xiangyao's cave abode, the illusion of the five elements was performed to the extreme, transforming the immaculate cave abode into a myriad of scenes in the blink of an eye. Now rain fell in a peach grove, peach blossoms fluttering. Now celestial maidens soared in the sky, dancing gracefully. Now the moonlight bathed a calm lake, fish and birds frolicking. Zai Xiangyao, a disciple of Qin Shenwu, also cultivated the art of the five elements, but unlike Jiang Chengxuan, she focused on transformations within the five elements, not their essence. Around Zai Xiangyao, numerous treasures released energy, drawing on the force of cosmic laws. Among these, a five-colored divine stone was particularly potent. This was a protective treasure given to Zai Xiangyao by Qin Shenwu, now aiding her fully in comprehending the cosmic laws. In the realm of Tao integration, the most crucial aspect was finding one's own path. Zai Xiangyao was struggling with this vital step. Her eyebrows furrowed slightly, and she exhaled a mist of five-colored light. Around her, the laws began to manifest, ready to emerge. She heard the sounds of underground fire erupting, tumultuous waves crashing, and the roaring of a forest. Gradually, the wildly changing illusion of the five elements in the cave abode began to return to simplicity, evolving into the most fundamental natural changes, the circulation of the five elements. This was the Tao of the five elements gradually merging with Zai Xiangyao's illusions. Once this step was completed, she would successfully enter the world of Tao integration saints. The moment was immensely prolonged, and it was unclear how much time had passed. But with Zai Xiangyao's perseverance, the Tao of the five elements transformations was finally comprehended by her. Buzz! Her aura surged instantly, her Tao manifested, the five elements transformed, instantly filling the entire cave abode. At this moment, Zai Xiangyao successfully ascended to become a Tao fusion saint. Instantly she soared up, eager to burst out and laugh heartily. But as she rushed out of the cave abode, ready to laugh, she awkwardly found three people watching her with curious expressions. These three were none other than Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, and her master, Qin Shenwu, who had been waiting once again. However, the awkward atmosphere didn't last long before it was overtaken by joy. Senior sister, congratulations on your breakthrough to Tao fusion. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan congratulated Zai Xiangyao with smiles, and Qin Shenwu also laughed heartily, full of praise. They had each prepared congratulatory gifts for Zai Xiangyao, all of high rank to match the occasion. Everyone was genuinely delighted about Zai Xiangyao's breakthrough. Before they could engage in much idle chat, another disturbance suddenly emanated from a different cave abode. The aura of Tao rules fluctuated abruptly, immediately sensed by the group. Its senior brother Zhao, he has also achieved Tao fusion, Truly, it's a double celebration, Jiang Chengxuan exclaimed joyfully. Without wasting a moment, the group hurried to congratulate Zhao Tianfen. This marked a significant milestone under Qin Shenwu's tutelage, with 3 disciples having reached the realm of Dao fusion, solidifying their status as the leading faction within the Heoran sect. During this period of breakthroughs, aside from Jiang Chengxuan's senior brother and sister, another individual had advanced. This was Jiang Anren, the disciple of both Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan. Previously, Jiang Anren had informed them of her intent to break through to Void Returning Realm. They generously imparted teaching and gifted her numerous treasures to ensure a flawless success. True to their efforts, at the conclusion of her seclusion, Jiang Anren also successfully advanced to the returning to the Void Realm. Beaming with joy, she reported her progress to Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan. The couple was overjoyed and promptly arranged a celebration ceremony for Jiang Anren. Qin Shenwu also expressed immense pleasure at this news. He regarded his disciple's disciple as his own, acknowledging Jiang Anren as a genius within his faction, whose future achievements might very well rival those of Zai Xiangyao and others. With Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan's support, Jiang Anren's path was confidently expected to be illustrious. Amidst a string of joyful events involving his loved ones, Jiang Chengxuan's mood was exceptionally buoyant. However, an unexpected storm was gradually brewing and drawing near to everyone. One day, while meditating in his cave abode, Jiang Chengxuan suddenly sensed a disturbance from within the Heoran sect. This instantly put him on high alert, for the source of the disturbance was none other than the Ascension Ancestor Hall of the Heoran sect, the most sacred place within the sect. Needless to say, such a disturbance was surely connected to the celestial ancestors of the upper realms. And anything involving the immortals could hardly be trivial. Jiang Chengxuan disappeared from his spot in an instant, rushing to the Ascension Ancestor Hall as fast as possible. There, a blue celestial light continuously shone down from the golden statue of the ancestor. Within the shimmering celestial light, ancient characters formed a sentence, a message from the immortal ancestor meant for Jiang Chengxuan. This message profoundly shocked Jiang Chengxuan and filled him with astonishment. It was a reminder, or rather, a warning from the immortal ancestor. The message appeared before Jiang Chengxuan and then slowly began to dissipate. By the time Qin Shenwu arrived, only a few lingering words remained visible. Prepare for what has happened, Chengxuan. Qin Shenwu entered the Ascension Ancestor Hall with a furrowed brow, instinctively reading the last few words aloud and inquiring further. As a venerable member of the Heoran sect, he knew that any communication from the immortal ancestors was no trivial matter. After all, it wasn't easy for the higher realms to contact the lower realms, and the immortal ancestors, with their valuable time, would not bother with them unless it was something significant. Otherwise, could they really expect the immortal ancestors to take these disciples on an adventure through the floodgate realm? If it weren't for a matter that threatened the entire sect, the immortal ancestors wouldn't easily intervene. No one in the Heoran sect warranted such attention. A great calamity is imminent, prepare to face it. Jiang Chengxuan relayed the complete message to Qin Shenwu. Indeed, the immortal ancestors' warning was to inform the master of the Heoran sect that a monumental disaster was approaching, a disaster that could engulf the entire floodgate realm and potentially lead to the destruction of the entire Heoran sect. Calamity. Upon hearing these words, Qin Shenwu also felt a sense of foreboding. Since ancient times, only events that could sweep across the heavens and put countless lives at risk were called great calamities, and those known as great calamities were not something even Dailords of Mahayana could ignore and remain unconcerned about. It seemed that just when the Heoran sect had begun to prosper after a century of peace, and their faction was about to thrive, a sudden calamity was looming. Qin Shenwu was understandably frustrated. Did the upper realm ancestor specify what kind of disaster it is? Yes. Faced with Qin Shenwu's question, Jiang Chengxuan affirmed. Whether it was a coincidence or arranged by the ancestor, he had managed to read the entire message just in time. The ancestor mentioned that a millennium disaster of the lower realm is approaching. Jiang Chengxuan organized his thoughts before continuing. The gates to the immortal and spirit realms open every 10 million years, and during these times, they become extremely unstable. The ancestor speculated that this time is drawing near. And with the instability of the two realms' gates, fissures will undoubtedly appear, through which demonic immortals, intent on causing havoc, may attempt to descend to the lower realm. Jiang Chengxuan finished conveying the immortal ancestors' message, leaving even Qin Shenwu feeling alarmed. They had thought that the conflict over the immortals' cave abode in 100 years would be fierce enough, yet an even greater disaster had suddenly appeared. This time, the great calamity facing the floodgate realm was brought about by demonic immortals from the higher realms. Such a disaster made even him feel powerless. If these demonic immortals really did descend to the lower realm, not even a half-step celestial being among the human ancestors could stop them. Demonic immortals were also immortals of the upper realm, to whom beings below them might as well be ants to be crushed. Even wielding quasi-immortal weapons would only make them slightly larger insects. This was the gap between the realms after ascension and the floodgate realm. If demonic immortals descended, they could annihilate all life in the floodgate realm in an instant. Compared to this upcoming calamity, the previous 5 realms' war seemed almost laughable, like children squabbling. The descended demonic immortals were like armored butchers. This disaster truly is immense. No wonder even the ancestors left a warning. Likely, we are not the only ones who have received this message from the ancestors. Qin Shenwu said gravely. This was a genuine cosmic calamity, where a slight misstep could topple the entire world. Standing in the Ascension Ancestor Hall, Jiang Chengxuan remained silent, suddenly feeling much more alert. Since taking over as the master of the Haoran sect, he had felt relatively at ease. Recent breakthroughs among his friends and family had filled him with too much confidence about the future. Indeed, the Haoran sect had become a dominant force, so what? Even if all of them became Daelords of Mahayana, what then? Facing a disaster from the immortal realm, could they really expect to turn the tide? Looking at the golden statues of the ascended ancestors, Jiang Chengxuan's fighting spirit reignited. It had been a long time since he had felt such a sense of crisis. Even during the 5 Realms War, he had considered himself capable of self-preservation, always in control of the situation. Now, with demonic immortals threatening to descend, who could confidently claim to be invincible? Moreover, at this moment, Jiang Chengxuan wasn't just fighting for himself. Behind him stood the entire Haoran sect. His role wasn't merely to survive. He needed to ensure that the entire sect could withstand the impending catastrophe. The weight of this responsibility was immense. However, this sense of crisis didn't crush Jiang Chengxuan. It sharpened his resolve. For a long time, he had never known what it was to give up, facing one desperate situation after another to reach his current position. Ha ha ha, the immortal realm really did give us quite the surprise. Jiang Chengxuan suddenly laughed amid the quiet of the night, his tone tinged with irony. His demeanor startled Qin Shenwu, who then also burst into laughter. You've really got guts, kid. This time even I'm not as brave as you. Seeing his disciple's sudden shift in attitude, even Qin Shenwu had to admit his admiration. Since Jiang Chengxuan had taken over as the sect master of the Haoran sect, Qin had stopped seeing him as just a young disciple. To his surprise, Jiang had grown more than he had anticipated, which was pleasantly surprising. This was typical of his disciple, always managing to surprise and inspire. Are we talking about demonic immortals, those who dare not contend in the higher realms and instead come down here to wreak havoc? Let's show them what we've got, master and disciple together. Qin Shenwu declared with authority, his demeanor as a Daelord of Mahayana returning to him. It had to be said, this Shifu and disciple pair truly did share a bond. But quickly, Jiang Chengxuan, together with Shen Ruyan, devised a plan to counter the great calamity. Their first step was to enhance the treatment of the disciples within the sect, utilizing all resources at their disposal, even opening up the sect's storages for loans. They ensured that critical cultivation resources, such as breakthrough treasures, were provided immediately by the sect, regardless of whether the disciples had enough merits for exchange, with the promise they could repay in the future. This policy, once implemented, instantly sparked widespread praise among the disciples. Jiang Chengxuan's goal was clear: to disregard resource depletion and first elevate the cultivation level of the sect's disciples. Using the entire sect's treasury as a leverage point to boost the overall strength of the Haoran sect was aimed at increasing their chances of survival under the Great Calamity. While utilizing the new regulations to maximize the use of stockpiled resources, Jiang Chengxuan also implemented other strategies. He convened a sect assembly that was attended only by elders of the Tao Mastery and above. With the exception of Zhu Ping, who was in seclusion, he informed everyone present about the impending calamity. Hearing the immortal ancestors' warning undoubtedly brought a sense of crisis to everyone's heart. However, as these were Tao mastery powers who had weathered many storms, they were not consumed by fear. Jiang Chengxuan tasked these elders with scouring the floodgate realm to identify potential landing sites for the demonic immortals. This task was systematic. According to historical records, demonic immortals typically breach the lower realm in places abundant in demonic energy, especially locations that had previously hosted demonic cultivations, requiring careful investigation. Given the perilous nature of this task, it was entrusted only to Tao mastery cultivators, whom Jiang Chengxuan could rely on. Additionally, Jiang Chengxuan prepared contingency plans in various locations, ensuring that even if the calamity struck, the vast sect would not be without retreat options. And that was all he could do. The terrifying nature of the demonic immortals was unpredictable, and even the immortal ancestors from the upper realms could only issue warnings without providing concrete solutions because none existed. Demonic immortals, such fearsome beings of the upper realm, were well beyond any preliminary strategies. Just knowing their target was already an advantage. Most lower realms likely faced destruction by these demonic immortals before even perceiving their shadow. While Jiang Chengxuan was busy with preparations, other powers within the floodgate realm gradually began to receive similar messages from their own immortal ancestors. The content of these messages was identical to that received by the Haoran sect, all forecasting the great calamity and advising preparations against the invasion of demonic immortals. Such news was enough to make any sect leader despair. In the Pantheon sect, both the sect master and the Daelord stood silently in their Ascension Ancestor Hall, struggling to speak. Their situation was perhaps more dire than other sects, as their history was rife with enmities with demonic cultivators. As the leaders of the Righteous Alliance, they had built their reputation on leading the charge against demonic cultivators. This stance was similar to that of the Haoran sect, as both followed a doctrine of righteousness inherently opposed to demonic paths. Sects like the Qiankun Hall and the Five Elements Heaven sect, which had engaged in murky dealings, might find it easier to negotiate with demonic immortals. Not to mention the demonic cultivation sects, who would likely welcome the descent of demonic immortals, despite them not being their ancestors. Even though these demonic entities would likely not protect them, the demonic cultivators would certainly relish the opportunity to assist them if it meant causing trouble. Amidst these circumstances, a tense atmosphere slowly enveloped the entire floodgate realm. Although the sect leaders tried to keep the information confidential to avoid panic, certain preparations and actions could still hint at something amiss, quickly noticed by the disciples. And as these disciples interacted with the numerous solitary cultivators outside, conclusions were swiftly drawn. It appeared that nearly all major sects in the floodgate realm were preparing for something, guarding against some threat. Whatever it was that could provoke such unified action among the major sects of the floodgate realm, it was surely on the scale of, if not greater than, the previous 5 realms' war. The shadow and damage wrought by that conflict still lingered in the minds of many cultivators. And now, with even greater turmoil looming in the darkness, they were understandably apprehensive. Was the floodgate realm about to plunge into devastation once more? For the smaller sects barely surviving, this news struck like a thunderbolt. In response, they relentlessly leveraged connections to inquire with their superior sects about what exactly was happening. Jiang Chengxuan was also dealing with this problem. Within the areas under the Haoran sect's influence, numerous smaller sects existed, and now all their leaders, through elder connections, sought to understand what was going on. Even some elders of the Haoran sect were puzzled and curious. However, the matter was too significant. Even informing them wouldn't help, as even Jiang and his master Qin Shenwu lacked substantial solutions. If the entire floodgate realm became aware of the situation, whether it would be beneficial was uncertain. After much consideration, Jiang Chengxuan decided to keep the information under wraps, continuing to suppress it. He told only the sect elders that all sects would be involved and that there was no way out. They would need to collaborate to survive the calamity, so there was no need for panic. Whatever happened, they would be protected by these major sects, which was Jiang Chengxuan's way of reassuring them. Leveraging his personal charisma and the credibility of the Heoran sect, his response managed to calm many. If a great calamity is indeed approaching, then the entire floodgate realm is inescapable, he conveyed. Like the old saying goes, when the sky falls, the tall must bear it. Jiang Chengxuan's statement undoubtedly soothed many hearts, allowing numerous smaller sects to regain their composure. However, private preparations were still essential. Relying solely on the major sects to weather everything would be naive. These smaller sects knew that if they depended entirely on the major powers, they would be close to annihilation. Or perhaps their inquiries were more about seeking a stance than solutions. In a real crisis, this could exert moral pressure on the major sects to compel them to assist. This was the calculation of the smaller sect disciples. They had always survived by leveraging such cunning, even if it might not always be effective. They never gave up any opportunity to fight for their survival. In the tense interim before the great calamity struck, countless sects and powers throughout the floodgate realm were in motion, scheming against each other. The impending disaster and the ensuing public panic were used for various manipulations. This was human nature. Some took advantage of the chaos to loot, others schemed and deceived, while some gathered support and amassed wealth. Just the rumors of the approaching disaster had already triggered numerous chain reactions throughout the floodgate realm. At this time, the major sects had little bandwidth to manage these behaviors, as they were each focused on their own preparations, creating an atmosphere of intense urgency within each sect. As the time of the great calamity remained uncertain, the ambiguity of the situation only deepened the anxiety. Even the most capable cultivators, accustomed to facing challenges head-on, found themselves grappling with a sense of helplessness that many would never forget. Over the years, they had forgotten their initial vulnerability, the desperate struggles in the mires of powerlessness. Not everyone possessed Jiang Chengxuan's strong will and stable mindset. The sudden and immense sense of crisis increasingly dominated their thoughts day by day. Eventually, under the weight of this immense pressure, many sects could no longer keep to themselves. They began reaching out to other sects, seeking to collaborate and strategize together. This news naturally reached the Heoran sect. At that moment, Jiang Chengxuan was in his cave, contemplating potential allies for cooperation. "Husband, are you considering whom to contact?" Shen Ruyan gently asked, stepping out from behind Jiang Chengxuan. Jiang Chengxuan never kept Shen Ruyan in the dark about such matters. Moreover, if the Heoran sect were to form alliances, Thunderclap Valley would undoubtedly be the first choice, given their relationship, relative strengths, and geographical proximity. "Yes, there's been a lot of this kind of news recently, but not everyone can actually be of help to us," Jiang Chengxuan responded, turning to face Shen Ruyan. Sitting as the master of the Heoran sect, Jiang Chengxuan naturally prioritized the interests of his sect. In times like these, it wasn't necessarily better to have more allies. Sometimes, aligning with too powerful a force could be cumbersome and lead to hesitation. For instance, if two sects practice the same techniques, it might only be sensible to choose one as an ally. Otherwise, internal conflicts could arise, significantly affecting collective strength. Initially, Jiang Chengxuan was most interested in any unique messages passed down from the immortal ancestors of various sects, hoping for more detailed information. However, after contacting other sects, he realized that the messages were uniformly the same. Whether from the immortal ancestors of any sect, none provided detailed information. All they knew were key phrases like demonic immortals descending and millennial calamity. The sects Jiang Chengxuan was considering for an alliance were those he had cooperated with during the battle in the Eastern Sky Domain, including Facian Sect, Cayenne Family, and Thunderclap Valley. The trust among these groups, forged through shared struggles, was unquestionable. Additionally, their geographic proximity ensured there would be no burden of coordination. As these thoughts processed, a new message arrived. Surprisingly, it was an invitation from the Pantheon sect, proposing a reformation of the alliances across the floodgate realm to jointly defend against the demonic immortals' schemes. Given that this was an invitation from the leading and most established sect of the floodgate realm, Jiang Chengxuan decided it was worth considering. After all, isolating oneself would no longer lead to improvements. But soon, two beams of light shot up from the Heoran sect and swiftly descended at the entrance of the Pantheon sect. Recognized by the elders of the Pantheon sect, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan were promptly led to the Grand Assembly Hall of the sect. Many representatives from various forces, such as the Facian sect and the Qian family, were already present. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan nodded to them in greeting. They noticed that representatives from Qiankun Hall and Five Elements Heaven sect were conspicuously absent, likely to maintain their pseudo-righteous facade. Possibly, they had already sought alliances with genuine demonic forces. Before the main speakers of the Pantheon sect arrived, everyone in the hall engaged in casual conversations, exchanging available information. However, as expected, nothing significantly new was discussed. As they exchanged pleasantries and reassurances, the atmosphere helped stave off the underlying panic momentarily. Then, as the figure of the Pantheon Deilord emerged from the depths of the hall, another alliance meeting commenced, a scene reminiscent of the prelude to the Five Realms War. Esteemed guests, welcome. Whether or not we succeed, at least we see each other's determination, the Pantheon Deilord began, his commanding voice filling the hall. Everyone nodded in agreement. Even if the sects did not end up forming an alliance, at least they understood each other's stances. Everyone is aware that this calamity is extraordinary, occurring once every million years, and involves the hands of immortals. Time is pressing, so let's be brief. Starting from the left, let us share what we know and suggest, continued the Pantheon Deilord, making a gesture towards the representatives from the southern heavenly realms flying Seagate to start. They began sharing information from their respective areas about the impending disaster. Fortunately, this information exchange didn't take much time, as the details from each sect were brief and largely reiterated known facts, bringing no new insights. Even the Pantheon sect, despite its prominence, had nothing additional of value to offer. Consequently, the assembly hall fell into a prolonged silence. The lack of detailed information about the calamity made it difficult for any of the sects to formulate a precise plan of action. It seems that our ancestors have been transparent, giving us all the information they could, the Pantheon Deilord sighed, acknowledging the uniform vagueness of the messages. It was clear that even the immortal ancestors in the upper realms had no effective solutions for this calamity. Thus, the responsibility to deal with the crisis would rest on their own shoulders. Let's each share any viable strategies we might have. By pooling our wisdom, we might not leave here empty-handed, Jiang Chengxuan proposed, prompting nods of agreement from the sect leaders gathered. Following his lead, they began to share their respective approaches to the crisis. For example, Jiang Chengxuan's method of advancing resources to disciples, to be repaid later, garnered much approval. This strategy not only ensured continuous improvement in the disciples' strength, but also crucially meant that, after the calamity, some interest could be recouped, preventing the complete depletion of the sect's resources. This approach was particularly appealing to sects that were resource-constrained. After the assembly of various sects transformed into a grand symposium for exchanging ideas on averting calamity, Jiang Chengxuan learned numerous tactics. Upon his return, he planned to swiftly integrate these strategies according to the needs of the Haoran sect. Yet at its core, the primary issue remained unresolved. The measures were, ultimately, superficial solutions, merely emergency strategies under the shadow of a great calamity. The initial objectives and plans of the various sects had not been achieved. In fact, there had been no progress whatsoever. The discussions had failed to produce even a single concrete plan or strategy for the looming disaster. Post-discussion, the sect leaders could only return to their respective domains like headless flies, passively awaiting the catastrophe's descent. Sect Master Jiang, it has been too long. May we have a chat? At this moment, the head of the Qian family and the sect master of the Facian sect approached him, smiles on their faces. They had forged a favorable impression of each other during the conflicts of the Five Realms War. Their joint approach to Jiang Chengxuan was clearly motivated by a singular issue. They sought an alliance with the Haoran sect to jointly face the impending ordeal. It is indeed my intention, Jiang Chengxuan responded with a smile, signaling his readiness to collaborate. Jiang Chengxuan had already identified the Qian family and the Flying Heaven sect as potential allies, and had discreetly tested the waters with them on several occasions. This gathering provided a perfect opportunity to formalize this alliance. As if their conversation was a signal, many other sects within the Grand Hall began to cautiously probe each other, seeking partnerships. Naturally, several wished to join the formidable ship that was the Haoran sect. However, Jiang Chengxuan, adhering to a principle of quality over quantity, tactfully rebuffed these overtures. Even as the joint deliberation concluded, Jiang Chengxuan did not seek to add more allies. Other forces had more or less settled their alliances. Those who lacked influence managed to barely secure an ally in the Pantheon sect, which had initiated the conference, and thus could hardly refuse any solicitations. Soon after the meeting adjourned, everyone bid their farewells and returned to their respective sects. That night Jiang Chengxuan stood atop the cloud mist peak, observing the stars. Shen Ruyan, ever faithful, was by his side, never straying. With Jiang Chengxuan's influence, this once unremarkable peak had become a landmark of the Haoran sect. Standing at the summit, the stars seemed within reach, vast and profound. Since ancient times, celestial patterns, intrinsically linked with the Tao, have been observed to discern the changes in the world, with each influencing the other. Earthly diviners revered by thousands would predict the future based on these patterns, though their insights were mere fragments compared to what true cultivators could perceive. Gazing at the stars, even Shen Ruyan felt a profound connection. Jiang Chengxuan, armed with the heavenly calculation technique, had been deeply contemplating the great calamity, noticing many subtle shifts. Having advanced this technique to level 6, he sensed that the impending calamity was bound to be terrifying. Those not at the Tao mastery level might not even qualify to contend with it. The situation seemed worse than anyone could have anticipated. In his divinatory vision, Jiang Chengxuan saw a massive dark red star, glowing ominously, bearing down on a tiny pale blue star, the floodgate realm. This foreboding image, nearly a guarantee of a dire fate, depicted a calamity so severe that even the mightiest in the floodgate realm would be helpless. As the power of his divination intensified, the vision became clearer. He saw gigantic demonic hands pressing down, extinguishing even the brightest glimmers of hope, indicating that even the most powerful beings in the floodgate realm would stand no chance against the calamity. Is there really no path to survival? Jiang Chengxuan pondered deeply, his brow furrowed with the magnitude of the danger, which was immense and shrouded in mystery. Even with his advanced divinatory capabilities, it was difficult to see a clear future or find a path to salvation. However, at that moment a sudden insight struck him. A path, yes, that's it. He was suddenly overjoyed, realizing the crux of the issue. The extreme danger was due to their passivity. They were merely waiting for the calamity to arrive without any proactive strategy. In the midst of urgent concerns, a critical risk had been overlooked. The demonic sects still lurking within the floodgate realm, likely to welcome the demonic invasion. "Husband, have you thought of a plan?" Shen Ruyan asked, noticing Jiang Chengxuan's delighted expression, her smile reflecting her relief at seeing him so animated after days of seriousness. "Yes, my wife, I have found the key to the problem," Jiang Chengxuan replied without hesitation, quickly sharing his epiphany with Shen Ruyan. His solution was straightforward yet bold: to once again unite with other sects to encircle and suppress the demonic cultivators. While it might not be possible to eradicate them entirely, the goal was to significantly restrict their activities and reduce the likelihood of unforeseen disruptions. This approach would also serve as a stern warning to the demonic forces. Any thoughts of rebellion would have to be carefully reconsidered, given their dramatically reduced maneuverability. Shen Ruyan's eyes lit up upon hearing his plan. "This indeed sounds like a good strategy," she agreed, understanding that this proactive stance could alter the dynamics of the upcoming calamity. As Jiang Chengxuan explained his plan in detail to Shen Ruyan, a weight seemed to lift from his shoulders. The oppressive sense of doom that had clouded his thoughts began to dissipate, suggesting that this plan could indeed strike at the heart of the crisis and potentially sway the course of the forthcoming events. That very night, Jiang Chengxuan headed to the Haoran sect's library, consumed by the thought of compressing the living space of demonic cultivators. He pored over the records from a great battle between good and evil, studying the distribution and strength of the demonic cultivators. Following that battle, it was undeniable that the demonic cultivators had suffered significant losses and were suppressed by the righteous path. However, much time had passed since then, and given the nature of demonic cultivators to favor rapid advancement, it was certain they had replenished their ranks considerably. The methods of the demonic path, both cultivation and spells, are all about rapid success and swift gains, often employing unscrupulous means to seek the ultimate shortcuts. Particularly some demonic cultivators, who specialize in heinous acts that defy heaven and reason to boost their cultivation, are regarded as abominations deserving of universal condemnation. Jiang Chengxuan sifted through the materials, and a strategic map slowly took shape in his mind. In coordination with the righteous forces of the floodgate realm, he formulated the most efficient and prudent plan. Outside, dawn was breaking, and unbeknownst to him, Jiang Chengxuan had been reading for a full day and night. Yet he felt no fatigue, for he had seemingly solved a long-standing problem plaguing the floodgate realm, with the solution now clear in his mind. Without hesitation, he shared his plans with his shifu Qin Shenwu, who lavished him with praise. "Indeed, when it comes down to crucial moments, we must rely on you young ones," Qin Shenwu remarked. The sudden onset of the great calamity of the demonic immortals had thrown everyone into disarray. It was crucial yet overlooked until now, revealed only through Jiang Chengxuan's recent discovery. Fortunately, there was still time to act. After the great battle between good and evil, the demonic cultivators had hidden themselves too well, causing many to forget their malignance. The nature of the demonic path was hard to change, and they had to be dealt with, no matter what. Swiftly, Jiang Chengxuan drafted a message detailing his thoughts and sent it to various sects and factions. That very day, his plan reached many high-ranking members of various sects. Surprised yet enlightened by the opportunity, these sects readily agreed, naturally offering no opposition. The next day, countless responses flooded back to the Haoran sect, landing in Jiang Chengxuan's hands. Almost everyone agreed to participate, aiming to compress the activities of demonic cultivators throughout the floodgate realm, regardless of their strength or size. The main discussions were about which forces to target and who would be responsible for which areas. Undoubtedly, they all looked to the Haoran sect as the leader in this initiative, awaiting Jiang Chengxuan's specific arrangements. However, it wasn't as simple as Jiang Chengxuan dictating plans for others to follow. His primary task was to consolidate the responses, information, and suggestions from the various sects, then relay them to other factions for joint deliberation. Thus, centered around Jiang Chengxuan, a plan targeting the demonic cultivators of the floodgate realm was quietly taking shape. The primary targets were, of course, the most brutal and unprincipled demonic forces, especially sects like the sacred skeleton sect, known for their utter ruthlessness, using murder, corpses, and bones as resources for cultivation and combat methods. For such targets, no reason was needed to justify their subjugation. They were unstable elements for any force. The first step was naturally to ascertain the current distribution and strength of the demonic cultivators in the floodgate realm. Being exceedingly cunning, the demonic cultivators had likely shifted their main bases after the previous purge by the righteous forces. Under Jiang Chengxuan's orders, each sect discreetly dispatched their cultivators to gather intelligence, providing cover for one another during the process. For example, the Haoran sect or those from the east could investigate in the west, ensuring that even if the demonic cultivators noticed something amiss, they wouldn't be overly suspicious. After all, under normal circumstances, what grievances could there be between distant forces to warrant such targeted actions? But the demonic forces had not anticipated that the various factions had already united. Soon, as time passed, information about the demonic cultivators gradually surfaced. The findings were shocking. Many had not anticipated that numerous demonic forces were already laying plans to summon the legendary demonic immortals. Moreover, during this chaotic period, these demonic cultivators had regained much of their strength, particularly during the Battle of the Five Realms, where the death toll among cultivators was staggeringly high. These opportunistic demonic cultivators had reaped many benefits. And now, as the great calamity approached, causing further chaos, many demonic forces were eagerly stirring. For instance, the sacred skeleton sect, which had seized the opportunity to slaughter several smaller sects completely, using them as resources to cultivate their nefarious bone techniques. Without meticulous investigation, no one would have even heard a whisper of these deeds. These demonic forces, much like cockroaches, were thriving in the shadows. Such news undoubtedly sent chills through all the righteous sects and reinforced their resolve to eradicate the demonic forces. Moreover, the strategy had to be multifaceted and thorough, attacking the root of the demonic cultivation to stifle its growth. Under Jiang Chengxuan's coordination, many forces began to systematically suppress the demonic influences. Starting from the lowest ranks, any activity attempted by demonic cultivators was met with resistance. In the past, infighting among the righteous forces might have given the demonic cultivators an advantage. But now everyone seemed like a warrior of justice. Upon sighting a demonic cultivator, they would lend aid to thwart their schemes without hesitation. In such circumstances, the demonic cultivators of the floodgate realm suddenly found themselves under immense pressure. If their strengths had been mismatched, they could have continued to benefit from the chaos and sneak around collecting spoils. But now, with the various forces allied and settling disputes through peaceful discussion, all focus was turned towards combating the demonic factions. During this period, countless clashes erupted between the forces of good and evil throughout the floodgate realm. Although these conflicts were still confined to the lower ranks of cultivators, they were a clear sign of the tough times the demonic forces were facing. The range of activities for demonic cultivators was severely limited. Apart from the territories they directly controlled, demonic cultivators were being expelled from everywhere else, corralled into specific areas. The scrutiny and patrol were intensified to ensure that the demonic forces were contained within these designated areas. However, there was no attempt to completely exterminate them yet. At the same time, in the territory of the sacred skeleton sect, outside the Bone Demon Ridge, forces of the righteous path had already assembled. This place, known as the Bone Demon Ridge, was the ancestral land passed down through generations of the sacred skeleton sect. Surrounding the area, countless white bones piled high created an eerie and terrifying atmosphere, where not a single blade of grass grew for hundreds of miles around. The sacred skeleton sect, an ancient entity within the demonic forces, had never been eradicated. Their techniques, all related to bones, were imbued with the rules of withering, silence, and indestructibility. Representatives from the Haoran sect in Thunderclap Valley were now in a standoff with the demonic cultivators of the sacred skeleton sect across the void. Over the past few days, the clashes between the righteous and the demonic had escalated from lower to higher-level cultivators. Under Jiang Chengxuan's command, a lightning-fast raid was launched on the sacred skeleton sect, pinning the demonic cultivators right at their doorstep. Head of the Haoran sect, people of Thunderclap Valley, what are your intentions with this sudden attack on our sacred skeleton sect? Bellowed a white-haired cultivator from the front lines of the demonic cultivators. He was the leader of the sacred skeleton sect, Saint Skeleton, a peak Tao mastery. Now he was manifesting a gigantic skeletal figure looming ominously behind him, radiating a chilling aura. The path of your so-called bone doctrine is utterly without moral foundation, entirely vile. You've long since broken any so-called truce with such heinous acts. We of the righteous path spared you before, not so you could intensify your wicked deeds. Jiang Chengxuan immediately retorted, his words sharp as blades. Enough talk. Today, the sacred skeleton sect shall be exterminated. Without any hesitation, at Jiang Chengxuan's command, countless cultivators from Haoran sect and Thunderclap Valley surged forward. The battle between good and evil was reignited. Traditionally, because the righteous factions each had their own agendas, as long as the demonic path did not provoke excessively, no one would take it upon themselves to eradicate them to save the common folk. Thus, this sudden unity among the righteous forces caught the demonic factions off guard. At this moment, not only was the battle raging at the site of the sacred skeleton sect. Across the floodgate realm, demonic forces were facing sudden attacks from the allied righteous sects. For instance, at the territory of the Ghost Hall, cultivators from the Pantheon sect were clashing with the Nether Ghosts. In the lands of the Joyous Union Valley, the Kayan family and the Phaetian sect were joining forces to combat, slaughtering duos of lascivious cultivator from the Joyous Union sect. However, compared to the ruthless sacred skeleton sect, their opponents were not so harsh. Unlike Jiang Chengxuan, who was determined to crush his enemies utterly. Nevertheless, the righteous made no compromises in their attacks, aiming to severely wound or cripple the demonic cultivators, preventing them from causing any obstruction during the upcoming great calamity. After all, this was the only effective method currently available to deal with the calamity, and the previously powerless sects were now wholeheartedly driving out the demonic cultivators. The fierce battle raged for days, resulting in countless demonic cultivators dying. In the battle against the sacred skeleton sect, Jiang Chengxuan exhibited divine prowess, demonstrating his mastery of the Tao in front of all for the first time. With a barrage of powerful techniques in the formidable five-element cycle, he was unmatched. Even Saint Skeleton, a veteran Tao mastery, was forced into a continuous retreat. The outcome of the remaining battles, needless to say, heavily favored the numerically and qualitatively superior righteous side. Whether it was Thunderclap Valley or the Haoran sect, after several major battles, the power of the entire sect had greatly increased. The disciples' cultivation had significantly increased due to the resources and treasures the sect offered them. War, after all, is a contest of wealth and resources. And with the righteous sects on the rise, demonic cultivators of the same level could hardly compete. The victors of the first battle were the forces of the righteous alliance. Not just the sacred skeleton sect, but also the ghost hall and the joyous union sect were beaten back. And the war was far from over. To prepare for the great calamity, the righteous side adopted a do-or-die attitude. Only by pushing the demonic cultivators to their limits could they rest easy. After all, this was a campaign crucial to the fate of the sects and the entire floodgate realm. The next morning, the righteous sects launched yet another attack on the demonic forces. This time, the battle raged on for days and nights until the demonic cultivators were forced to retreat in defeat. The day after, the third full-scale assault on the demonic forces commenced, followed by a fourth and fifth over the ensuing days. These relentless battles instilled fear among the demonic cultivators. They wondered what had prompted the righteous alliance to pursue them with such unyielding determination. After several defeats, the power of the demonic path had been severely weakened. Whereas on the righteous side, the continuous combat only served to strengthen their resolve and capabilities. This relentless pressure forced the demonic forces to finally break. Facing the overwhelming might of the righteous sects, the demonic factions had no choice but to show weakness. "We should talk. Do you really want to push us to the point of mutual destruction?" the demonic cultivators proposed as they faced another crushing defeat by the righteous alliance's forces. Xianxia and the others had anticipated this moment of weakness from the demonic path. They had prepared their strategy well before the campaign against the demonic cultivators began. "There's nothing to discuss. You have only one option: to leave the central lands and go to the borderlands, never to return. The territories for the demonic path have already been delineated. You are not to cross these boundaries." At the negotiation table, members of the righteous alliance spoke in unison. They took the potential backlash from the demonic forces seriously, which is why they stopped short of completely annihilating them, fearing it might provoke greater turmoil. Moreover, with the great calamity approaching, although they all agreed on expelling the demonic cultivators, they wished to avoid excessive losses. The best solution was to confine the demonic forces to barren lands where they could not thrive, and to strictly prohibit them from stepping out of their assigned regions. This was the baseline agreed upon before the war. If the demonic side did not accept it, the righteous were prepared to fight to the end, even if it meant making significant sacrifices. This was the singular goal of the righteous union: to compress the living space of the demonic cultivators. Such demands were, unsurprisingly, infuriating for the demonic cultivators. Asking them to voluntarily abandon territories they had controlled for years was deemed excessively harsh. After several tests, the demonic cultivators fully understood the unyielding stance of the righteous path. This demand was their bottom line, and they were not prepared to make any concessions. In such a situation, tensions inevitably escalated once again. However, after a period of warfare, the demonic forces continued to suffer defeat after defeat, unable to break through. Ultimately, they had to face reality and accept the demands of the righteous alliance. After rough negotiations, the righteous alliance consistently achieved their desired outcomes. Numerous demonic forces were forced to abandon their strongholds or had their territories drastically reduced to remote borders, all under the strict supervision of the righteous alliance, with strict prohibitions against crossing the boundaries. This was undoubtedly a massive blow to the demonic forces. Those who had previously harbored thoughts of aiding the descent of demonic immortals now had to reconsider. Exposure would mean certain death, and the areas in which they could operate were tightly restricted, making it challenging to meet the necessary conditions for their plans. Attempting to aid the descent of demonic immortals not only had a low probability of success, but was also sure to backfire. The righteous side was naturally very satisfied with this outcome. Jiang Chengxuan felt as if a great oppressive force had almost completely dissipated. Perhaps this suppression of the demonic path had truly averted the great calamity. At the very least, it had been postponed for a considerable time, and either outcome was already a significant victory. Some sects also had their own methods of sensing the heavenly secrets, and ultimately, the results were unanimous. The great calamity would no longer pose a threat to the floodgate realm in the short term. This news undoubtedly delighted all the sects, and respect for the Heoran sect grew subconsciously. After all, if not for Jiang Chengxuan's proposal, this turn of events would have been unlikely. Subsequently, the righteous sects focused their main efforts on monitoring the demonic forces, remaining vigilant without any relaxation. In such circumstances, time flew by in the blink of an eye, and 100 years passed. Over these 100 years, the so-called Great Calamity showed no signs of manifesting. At the Heoran sect's Cloud Mist Peak, 5 people stood before Jiang Chengxuan's cave abode, discussing something. The most conspicuous among them was Mahayana Dailord Qin Shenwu, and the others were disciples of his faction. Jiang Chengxuan, Zai Xiangyao, Zhao Tianfen, and Shen Ruyan were all present. After hundreds of years, Qin Shenwu and Jiang Chengxuan had just received a message from Dailord All-Heaven, informing them that the Immortal's cave abode had begun to show signs of activity and was likely to open soon. Upon receiving this message, they immediately called upon Zai Xiangyao and Zhao Tianfen, planning to take them along to the Immortal's cave abode. Both had long since achieved the Dao fusion and possessed the capability to protect themselves. The group of 4 was the maximum number of people Qin Shenwu could lead while ensuring their complete safety. Anymore, and there could be accidents due to lack of attention. After all, the region outside their realm, coupled with the dangers of the Immortal's cave abode, were not to be underestimated even by a Mahayana Dailord. Is everything prepared? Qin Shenwu asked his disciples before departing. Yes, Shifu, replied Zai Xiangyao and Zhao Tianfen, nodding. This trip involves dangers in the region outside our domain and in the Immortal's cave abode. We must not take it lightly. If you have any doubts, it's still not too late to back out, Qin Shenwu said gravely. He cared deeply for his disciples, the closest to him, and wished to avoid any accidents. As for Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan, they were well aware of the risks and needed no further warnings. We understand and will be extremely cautious, the disciples reassured their master, choosing not to forfeit this rare opportunity. After all, visiting the Immortal's cave abode might be a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Very well, then let's proceed, Qin Shenwu said, seeing their determined looks, and led the group towards the Pantheon sect. After they left, Jiang Chengxuan had already arranged the affairs of the Heoran sect. As long as they kept an eye on the movements of the demonic sects, no unexpected events were likely to occur, as the organization responsible for surveillance had become quite adept over the centuries. A moment later, Qin Shenwu led his group into the Pantheon sect. With his status as a Mahayana Dailord, he did not need to announce his arrival and entered boldly. They arrived at the grand hall of the Pantheon sect, where the sect master soon came out to greet them warmly. Welcome, honored guests. We have been expecting you, greeted the master of the Pantheon sect, his welcome filled with warmth. Behind him, Jiang Chengxuan noticed some familiar faces. Among them was Gao Beiyu, who had once stood with Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan guarding against demonic threats in the New World. It appeared that he was now a core disciple of the Pantheon sect, and was also selected to venture into the Immortal's cave abode to seek fortunes. His cultivation level was similar to that of Zai Xiangyao and Zhao Tianfen, all being in the Dao integration realm. Jiang Chengxuan gave him a slight nod of recognition, which Gao Beiyu quickly returned with a respectful gesture, marking their brief exchange. Please, do not stand on ceremony, Dailord All-Heaven. Qin Shenwu spoke without any intention of engaging in small talk, quickly turning the conversation towards the matter at hand. We've heard about the activity within the Immortal's cave abode. What is the current situation? Just recently, we've noticed that the disturbances inside the Immortal's cave abode are becoming more frequent. It seems to be a sign that it's about to open, Dailord All-Heaven replied without hesitation. The same opinion is held by other sects as well, he added. This statement raised an eyebrow for Qin Shenwu. Other sects? Logically, these sects would normally be in competition with each other. It was unusual for them to share such information. Yes, the area around the Immortal's cave abode, located in the outer realms, has recently seen an increase in activity from extraterrestrial beasts, which has been quite troublesome, explained Daelord Allheaven. Some of us have decided to set aside our differences for the time being and focus on entering the Immortal's cave abode first. Daelord Allheaven swiftly cleared up Qin Shenwu's doubts. Under the drive of mutual interests, enemies could temporarily become allies. Previously, Daelord Allheaven had viewed other sects as rivals, but with the prospect of cooperation yielding benefits, hostilities could be momentarily suspended. Qin Shenwu nodded slightly in understanding. The logic was clear to him. Moreover, it was likely that each sect was being led by a Mahayana Daelord, accompanied by their respective younger generations. No one wanted to risk any mishaps. Naturally, he had no intention of complicating matters further. As Qin Shenwu and Daelord Allheaven were conversing, a series of sonic booms heralded the arrival of others. Jiang Chengxuan and his companions turned to see several streaks of white light swiftly approaching from the distance before landing in front of the group. Hehe, it's been a long time, Daelord Shenwu, Daelord Allheaven. The newcomers were also a group of 5, led by a Daelord of their sect. He was dressed in a robe of black and white, symbolizing the infinite, and carried an air of transcendent grace and authority. His eyes and brows suggested a depth of spiritual accomplishment, clearly a figure of significant prowess. His 4 disciples, clad in similar robes with sharp, penetrating gazes, were all Tao integration saints. Jiang Chengxuan was familiar with these individuals, members of an overlord force in the Floodgate realm, known as the Infinite Sect. They practiced the path of the infinite and the techniques of the infinite. He, fellow Taoists, it has been a long time. In response to Daelord Infinite's greeting, both Daelord Allheaven and Qin Shenwu replied neutrally. Clearly, there wasn't much of a personal connection between them. However, the relationship wasn't bad either. It's just that members of the Infinite Sect tended to be aloof, wholly devoted to the pursuit of their path, and generally indifferent to others, making them less than ideal partners in camaraderie. Indeed, the disciples of the Infinite Sect only exchanged brief glances with Jiang Chengxuan, and the others without any further interaction. Daelord Infinite merely chuckled and nodded at the responses from Daelord Allheaven and Qin Shenwu, then chose not to continue with the pleasantries. The atmosphere grew somewhat cooler with the arrival of the Infinite Sect. Fortunately, this chill did not last long as another streak of light approached from afar. Daelord Allheaven, Daelord Shenwu, it's been a while. It seems we have kept you waiting, haha. This new arrival seemed to have a better connection with Qin Shenwu and Daelord Allheaven. As this Daelord's light flared briefly, he suddenly appeared among them. This visitor was also a Daelord accompanied by 4 disciples, clad in dark purple attire, their auras mysteriously concealed, adding an air of enigma. Daelord Divine Shadow, long time no see. How have you been since our last meeting? Divine Shadow, you're slower than the Infinite Sect, huh? This was Daelord Divine Shadow, who had previously fought alongside Daelord Allheaven and Qin Shenwu against the abyssal demons. Compared to the Infinite Sect, the 3 shared a bond akin to comrades in arms, possessing a degree of mutual affection. At least, someone we can trust as an old acquaintance. One cannot take the Immortal's cave abode lightly. It's best to proceed with caution, Daelord Divine Shadow responded to the light teasing from Daelord Allheaven and Qin Shenwu. Behind him were the disciples of the Divine Shadow Gate, 3 men and 2 women, all in purple robes and slim in stature. Their demeanor was much friendlier, and they greeted everyone from the Pantheon sect and Jiang Chengxuan's group, acknowledging each other in preparation for potential future cooperation. So, what insights do you have about the Immortal's cave abode? Hearing the keyword Immortal's cave abode, everyone's eyes lit up with interest. Such an opportunity was a first for even the Mahayana Daelords, and the cave's treasures were unimaginably valuable. At Daelord Allheaven's inquiry, all eyes turned to Daelord Divine Shadow, awaiting his news. Regarding the Immortal's cave abode, I believe everyone has their own insights. Let's take this opportunity to share our thoughts, so nothing is overlooked, Daelord Divine Shadow responded, effectively tossing the ball back into their court. But really, this was what everyone had in mind, making it the perfect time to exchange information. Nobody fancied themselves as the chosen one, who could flawlessly navigate the cave's perils. Even to make it into the cave, they had set aside intersect rivalry, and now they were naturally not inclined to withhold any crucial information. This is beyond me. We are here at the invitation of Deilord All-Heaven, and our knowledge of the Immortal's cave abode comes from him. As for the cave, your understanding exceeds ours, so we'll listen to your discussion. Qin Shenwu was the first to speak, plainly stating the facts and directing the conversation towards the Pantheon sect, clearly not intending to waste words. Deilord Infinite and Deilord Divine Shadow looked to Deilord All-Heaven, who nodded slightly, acknowledging that the responsibility of sharing knowledge about the Immortal's cave abode fell on him. Since that is the case, I shall begin. Deilord All-Heaven accepted the lead in the conversation. As you all may know, the Immortal's cave abode is currently masterless, which I'm sure everyone is aware of. While this is fortunate, it also means that the entrance to the cave is extremely unstable, he continued. The entrance drifts throughout the outer realms, making it very hard to locate. Everyone should be prepared for the possibility of spending decades, even centuries, to find it. Deilord All-Heaven's words were new to Qin Shenwu, and the other Deilords also seemed surprised, indicating that this was their first time hearing such details. This explanation made it clear why the Pantheon sect was so quickly adapting their approach and advocating for unity. It was simply necessary under the circumstances. Spending extra time is to be expected for such a venture, and we are prepared for that, both Deilords responded, indicating that no matter how long it took, abandoning the endeavor was out of the question. Then let me continue. The next to speak was Deilord Infinite, following the order of the conversation. Once inside the Immortal's cave abode, separation is inevitable. I hope your disciples are prepared for that, Deilord Infinite stated succinctly, yet with conviction. His brief statement seemed to carry an implicit understanding of the cave's dangers. This remark caused a stir among the group. Each Deilord turned to their disciples to gauge their reactions. Being separated meant facing the perils of the Immortal's cave abode alone, which was akin to a life-or-death situation. However, Jiang Chengxuan and his peers were not deterred by Deilord Infinite's words. Their determination to enter the cave remained firm. The dangers outlined by Deilord Infinite only made explicit what they had already anticipated. Indeed, more daunting challenges could arise. It seems everyone is fully prepared then. I shall wrap up this discussion. Deilord Divine Shadow re-entered the conversation, aiming to lighten the increasingly tense atmosphere. This venture into the Immortal's cave abode will not just involve us. From what I understand, forces from the demonic path are likely to make an appearance as well. Deilord Divine Shadow revealed his information. This news added an extra layer of danger to the expedition, complicating the dynamics even further. Over the past century, demonic cultivators had been constantly thwarted by the righteous sects, and the antagonism between the two sides had become almost irreconcilable. Indeed, among these demonic forces, which had long been a malignancy in the floodgate realm, there were also Mahayana Deilords. However, unlike typical sect leaders, these ancient Deilords of the demonic path rarely concerned themselves with the welfare of their followers. They spent most of their time in seclusion, emerging only when exceptionally rare treasures appeared that warranted their attention. And the Immortal's cave abode undoubtedly met these criteria. By then, it was inevitable that these ancient Deilords of the demonic sects would take action. Deilord Divine Shadow's words served as a reminder to everyone of this fact. Those old undying of the demonic sects will definitely not be able to sit still this time, Qin Shenwu commented with a serious tone. Although he was still confident about the journey, he harbored increased concerns for the safety of his disciples. Among the many Mahayana Deilords, Qin Shenwu was known to be particularly attentive to his disciples, a trait deeply rooted in the tradition of the Haoran sect, which was known for its protective stance. Alas, with so many unexpected factors now to consider, let's not hurry to depart. Let's take a few more days to think this over, Deilord All-Heaven suggested, indicating that they could afford to take some time to reconsider. After all, finding the entrance was likely to take decades, so there was no rush. Thus, the Mahayana Deilords and their disciples dispersed to rest temporarily within the confines of the Pantheon sect. Soon, several days had passed. The teams from the Pantheon sect, Haoran sect, Infinite sect, and Divine Shadow Gate gathered once again, and this time the atmosphere was just as somber as before. In silence, everyone exchanged glances, a tacit agreement evident among them. It was clear that after reconsidering all the risks, no one was willing to give up halfway. This time, no one spoke further. Everything that needed to be said was understood without words. Let's go. As soon as Daelord All-Heaven spoke, the four great Mahayana Daelords acted. They unleashed their powerful Tao rule, merging their formidable energies at one point, and in an instant, space itself was cleaved open, revealing a massive, profound gate of void. Beyond this dark gate, everyone could already sense an indescribable aura coming from the outer realms, a chaotic, unordered presence only ever witnessed by Mahayana Daelords. A solemn expression appeared on Jiang Chengxuan's face, mirrored by his companions, as a mix of excitement and apprehension played across their features. Then, without any hesitation, the Mahayana Daelords surged their Tao rules once more, enveloping their disciples, and then transformed into streaks of light that shot into the gate of the outer realms. Buzz! With a strange hum, Jiang Chengxuan and the others felt as though they had arrived in a profoundly deep world, more oppressive than the deepest ocean. Their senses were compressed to an extreme. So this was the outer world. Looking around, they saw worlds that appeared as ephemeral as bubbles, countless stars and various laws morphing into chaos. Even for Jiang Chengxuan, who had witnessed the cosmic primordial era, the sight was astonishing. The outer realms represented the primordial state of the world, the most authentic form of the universe. At this moment, not just Jiang Chengxuan but all the Tao integration cultivators and the disciples from various sects felt an indescribable shock. The outer realms were the domain of the supremely powerful. As they ventured deeper, Shen Ruyan involuntarily grasped Jiang Chengxuan's hand tighter. Under Daelord All-Heaven's lead, the lights formed by the four Mahayana Daelords, like linked stars, sped through the outer space toward their target location. The region where the Immortal's cave abode might be located was no smaller than the floodgate realm. Finding the entrance in such vastness without means would be impossible. The monotonous journey was incredibly dull. It had been a long time since these top-tier cultivators had traveled such a long distance. Just spending time on this journey has already taken almost a year, someone remarked. We're close now, Daelord All-Heaven's voice suddenly rang out, brightening everyone's spirits. Finally, after a lengthy journey, they entered the domain where the Immortal's cave abode was located. Around them were countless meteorites and dead stars, the energy extremely chaotic. Be careful, there's a group of outer realm beasts ahead. Prepare for battle. But immediately after, Daelord All-Heaven delivered another piece of less welcome news. Clearly, the energy eruptions from the Immortal's cave had not only attracted the attention of those from the floodgate realm, but also the chaotic beasts roaming the outer realms. Roar! Before anyone could react further, massive roars filled their ears. The first confrontation in the outer realm began abruptly. In front of Jiang Chengxuan and the others, dark shadows shifted, and chaos swirled, revealing several immense, semi-corporeal chaos beasts. These creatures, born from the chaos of the outer realms, possessed rudimentary sentience but were terrifyingly powerful. By nature, they possessed the strength of Tao integration practitioners. In the outer realms, Tao rules were abundantly accessible, although humans could not endure them. The chaotic forces were too disjointed to be harnessed by humans, but these chaos beasts could brutally exploit them. Roar! The chaos beasts charged towards the group, their bodies emanating chaotic Tao rules that formed countless tentacles ripping through the void. Before Jiang Chengxuan and the others could make a move, Qin Shenwu waved his hand dramatically, unleashing terrifying Tao powers that instantly shattered numerous chaos beasts. In the presence of a Mahayana Daelord, these chaotic law forces were evidently insufficient. Sizzle, sizzle. However, the situation was far from over. The chaos beasts, even though shattered into countless pieces by Qin Shenwu, began to coalesce back into shadowy forms, this time merging into a single, more formidable entity. This newly formed chaos beast's aura reached a terrifying level, matching that of a Mahayana Daelord. It was massive, stellar in size, prompting even Qin Shenwu to look serious. He manifested the Tao of the five elements around him, turning the five dominant elemental forces into a flowing river, hurtling towards the chaos beast. The chaos beast, undeterred, unleashed a barrage of chaotic Tao rules in retaliation, firing them directly at Qin Shenwu. Rumble! The clash of Mahayana Daelords triggered a tremendous explosion, pulverizing countless meteorites and dead stars in the vicinity, which exploded in sequence. This section of the outer realms instantly transformed into a fiery inferno, with chaotic energy currents tearing through the area, forcing Jiang Chengxuan and the others to summon their powers to resist. As Jiang Chengxuan and the others prepared to deal with the aftermath of their confrontation with the chaos beasts, the rest of the Mahayana Dailords were also encountering similar troubles. Many chaos beasts had merged into terrifying behemoths, wreaking havoc that seemed almost apocalyptic. Furthermore, the energy within this patch of the cosmos became increasingly turbulent and scorching with each skirmish. From the massive chaos beast emerged strange energy tendrils that sprouted from the void, quickly morphing into various forms of new chaos creatures. The unstable energy provided an ideal breeding ground for these low-level chaos beings. "We'll handle these low-level chaos beasts," Jiang Chengxuan declared, no longer content to watch from the sidelines. He summoned the five elements diagram, which immediately transformed into a piercing golden void sword that slashed through the newly formed chaos creatures, disintegrating them into dust. Five-colored divine thunder. Inspired by Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan and the other two also sprang into action, decisively striking down their foes. With their help, Qin Shenwu could concentrate more on battling the enormous Dailord-level chaos beast. At this moment, this region had truly become the center of a storm in the outer realms, with countless chaos creatures being born and dying in cycles, and the cultivators relentlessly slashing through them. Represented here were the Haoran sect, Pantheon sect, Infinite sect, and Divine Shadow Gate, collectively embodying the pinnacle of power from the Floodgate realm. The battle raged fiercely and continuously for months before finally coming to an end. Although the chaos beasts were troublesome and possessed bizarre abilities, they were ultimately creatures of low intelligence. Facing them were seasoned Mahayana Dailords, each a powerhouse in their own right, and with the added support from others, the beasts were subdued without excessive difficulty, though they did cause some delays. After this great battle, the entire region was nearly cleared, looking drastically different from when they had first arrived. What had been a landscape littered with giant meteorites and dead stars was now a flowing river of stardust, spreading everywhere. Let's continue our exploration. After a brief rest, Dailord Allheaven glanced around, saw nothing amiss, and once again led the group onward. Following the intense battle was more monotonous traveling and searching. Each Mahayana Dailord held a treasure capable of detecting spatial anomalies, essential for locating the immortal's cave abode within this vast region. Any hint of disturbance, and they would hasten to investigate. However, searching in this manner was fundamentally a crude method. In the outer realms, spatial fluctuations were commonplace and could be triggered by numerous factors, making their search akin to stumbling in the dark. Despite this, they had no better alternatives. All they could do was enhance their traveling efficiency and strive to capture any unusual manifestations within those spatial disturbances, which might increase their chances of success. Yet finding a specific spatial node in the outer realms was like searching for a needle in a haystack. It was evident that none among them were particularly favored by fortune. After long years spent exploring countless locations and investigating millions of disturbances, they still had not made significant progress. What they encountered instead were groups of chaos beasts and outer realm creatures, which they did not hesitate to eliminate, earning them some travel expenses to somewhat lighten their spirits. Decades later, in a certain part of the outer space, golden arcs mixed with violent thunderbolts illuminated the chaos, targeting a dark shadow that was obliterated in an instant. The attackers were none other than Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan, and this was not their first encounter with outer realm beasts. For the people of all sects, such encounters had become all too common. For decades, they had followed the treasure-guided path, chasing spatial nodes everywhere, yet they had still not caught a glimpse of the entrance to the immortal's cave abode. After efficiently dispatching another group of outer realm creatures, Jiang Chengxuan silently pulled out a map and marked another red cross on a certain spot. The map was densely packed with red markings, each indicating a place they had searched. However, the red areas covered only about a quarter of the entire map, suggesting that if their luck was exceptionally poor, they might need to spend 3 times as long to ensure finding the entrance to the immortal's cave abode. The situation was frustrating for the Mahayana Dailords, who, despite their enduring patience, couldn't help feeling a bit despondent. Let's move on, the next node is nearby. After clearing the battlefield, Qin Shenwu spoke to Jiang Chengxuan and the others. Once again, they transformed into streaks of light and flew towards the marked location, where another spatial node awaited them. Whoosh! With the Mahayana Dailord's power, they arrived almost instantaneously. Before them, a blurry point in the void twisted and turned, distorting the space around it. Quickly, Daelord Allheaven commanded, leading the charge. He unleashed a surge of Tao force, striking the unassuming spatial node directly. This had become a routine over decades. Millions of times they had performed this action, expecting the node to either collapse or dissipate. However, this time, the spatial node remained unaffected by their attacks, showing no signs of disturbance. This unexpected stability immediately alerted everyone, snapping them to heightened attention. Nodes that displayed anomalies like this were rare, and such behavior suggested a higher likelihood that this could be the entrance to the Immortal's cave abode. Everyone join forces now. Open the node quickly, Daelord Allheaven ordered with a serious tone. The other Daelords, without a moment of hesitation, combined their efforts. Their formidable Tao forces surged forth in a concert of power that was rare to witness. The Immortal's cave abode was known to shift its entrance, so speed was crucial. Rumble! The combined assault of the four Mahayana Daelords struck the node, and finally, an anomaly occurred. The once vague spatial node began to clarify and stabilize, and at the same time, a powerful burst of mysterious energy erupted, countering all their attacks and rendering them ineffective. At that moment, elation surged across everyone's faces. They had finally found the entrance to the Immortal's cave abode. The discovery was abrupt and exhilarating. Continue, don't stop now, urged Daelord Allheaven, as no one hesitated this time. An even larger and more stable wave of their collective Tao power hammered into the spatial node, gradually depleting the strange energy guarding it. As the bizarre energy slowly diminished, the spatial node expanded, unfolding like a scroll revealing a grand and mysterious vista beyond. As the spatial node gradually opened, the view beyond became clear. Through a thin layer of spatial membrane, everyone could clearly see inside a quaint great hall, atop whose steps stood a massive stone gate radiating an imposing, inviolable authority. Even the four Mahayana Daelords felt a profound sense of mystery emanating from the gate, stirring a mix of awe and joy in their hearts. After decades of searching in the outer space, their efforts had finally paid off. They had found the entrance to the Immortal's cave abode. Everyone held their breath in reverence, too awestruck to speak. Only the Mahayana Daelords continued to channel their dharmic power steadily, further stabilizing the spatial node. It's done, let's go, Daelord Allheaven exclaimed, his voice filled with excitement and urgency. He led his disciples, flying into the now stable spatial node. The others followed suit, one after another, with their disciples hurrying into the node. Passing through the spatial membrane, they entered a new space that immediately overwhelmed them with its ancient and majestic aura, as if immortals had just passed through the area. The hall they entered was extremely austere, devoid of any carvings or decorations, built instead with blocks of meteorites of unknown origins. At the far end of the hall stood the massive stone gate. Simply looking at it evoked visions of the ancient past, filled with a sense of the eternal. Immortal's cave abode, the ancient gate, Daelord Allheaven shouted excitedly upon seeing the gate. Qin Shenwu and Daelord Divine Shadow exchanged looks and laughed heartily, and even the typically stoic Daelord Infinite couldn't help but crack a rare smile. This stone gate, known as the Ancient Gate, is said to possess the strength of thousands of years and is impervious to any attack. Would anyone like to try their hand at it? Daelord Allheaven suggested, his tone light and pleased. With the gate found, there was no longer any rush. They could afford to slowly explore the marvels of the Immortal's cave abode, and this ancient gate was among those wonders. Really? If something goes wrong, you can't blame anyone else, Daelord Divine Shadow responded with a chuckle. Hee, feel free to try, Daelord Allheaven replied confidently. Daelord Divine Shadow seemed ready to take action when suddenly a massive surge of killing intent erupted. The Tao of Infinite, in black and white, materialized, and two extreme sword energies merged and struck towards the ancient gate. This was Daelord Infinite unleashing his full power, a genuine strike from a Mahayana Daelord. Buzz! To everyone's astonishment, this formidable attack was absorbed by the gate without a trace, merely causing a ripple of illusionary fluctuations around it. Daelord Infinite's attempt had not even managed to shake the ancient gate. Such was the power of the Immortal's cave abode, where even a stone gate could be a treasure akin to an immortal treasure. Impressive, let me try too. Qin Shenwu couldn't resist the challenge and unleashed a massive five-colored divine palm strike. Buzz! After a fierce vibration, the ancient gate remained as serene and undisturbed as ever. Even Daelord Divine Shadow was persuaded to stand down without testing his strength against it. As expected, it's as you said, Daelord All Heaven, but how exactly do we open this gate? He asked, acknowledging the futility of force. It seemed unlikely that brute strength could open the gate, and neither Divine Shadow Gate nor Infinite Sect had any clues on how to proceed, leaving them to rely on Daelord All Heaven. Previously, the plan was to sense the opening of the Immortal's Cave Abode's entrance and transfer there using a precious artifact, following Daelord All Heaven. Now, with everyone already here and united, they could simply let Daelord All Heaven take the lead. Of course, we in the Pantheon sect have our ways, Daelord All Heaven said with a hint of pride and confidence. He approached the ancient gate, standing with his hands behind his back, while everyone else closely followed, lest he attempt to escape, though such a possibility was unlikely. In the spirit of common practice among cultivators, Daelord All Heaven didn't take offense. Without further ado, he pulled out a mysterious treasure from his robe. This spherical object radiated an aura as grand as the hall itself, clearly linked to the master of the Immortal's Cave Abode. Everyone immediately understood that this treasure must have a connection with the master of the Immortal's Cave Abode, marveling at how the Pantheon sect, even after all these years, had managed to find such a key item. Prepare yourselves, the Immortal's Cave Abode is no trivial matter, it's fraught with peril. Each of you must fend for yourselves once inside, Daelord All Heaven said sternly, reminding them that once they entered the Immortal's Cave Abode, the alliance between the sects would likely dissolve, and each would be responsible for their own fate. Nods of understanding were exchanged among the group, each cultivator mentally preparing for the uncertainties ahead. Without further hesitation, Daelord All Heaven activated the mysterious treasure. A dense, ethereal light instantly emanated from it, casting a luminous glow over the ancient gate. At that moment, the entire space began to vibrate intensely. Powerful and ancient energies surged forth from the gate as if awakening from a long slumber. The atmosphere around the gate grew tumultuous, and the fabric of space seemed to undulate like ocean waves. Suddenly, an immense suction force emerged from the gate, pulling everything towards it. A dazzling light burst forth from the gate, overwhelming all other senses. Jiang Chengxuan quickly moved behind Qin Shenwu with Shen Ruyan, as Qin Shenwu attempted to shield his disciples and allies from the overpowering force. The energy was so peculiar and strong that it caught everyone off guard. Within a breath, before anyone could fully grasp what was happening, they found themselves being inexorably drawn into the gate. A strong sense of tearing suddenly spread throughout Jiang Chengxuan's body, and almost instinctively, he manifested the five elements reincarnation world to isolate and mitigate the external impacts. A highly chaotic barrage of rules struck, enveloping Jiang Chengxuan in darkness and chaos. Suddenly, the world seemed to contract at a high speed, stretching his consciousness to near stagnation. Fortunately, this ancient gate posed no actual danger. After what felt like an eternity, Jiang Chengxuan successfully passed through the ancient gate and regained his composure. Unexpectedly, just the stone gate of the Immortal's Cave Abode possesses such domineering power. Truly terrifying, Jiang Chengxuan murmured to himself. At this moment, he found himself in an entirely new space. This place posed no danger. It was just a typical void, perhaps even a resting place in the outer space realms. After all, this was a cave abode of an ancient immortal, not a deadly trap deliberately set to doom intruders. Although they were essentially sneaking in as outsiders, they had entered using proper methods rather than forcing their way through. Compared to true intruder, their treatment was somewhat better. Yet Jiang Chengxuan's expression remained serious. Because in the instant they passed through the ancient gate, he and Shen Ruyan, among others, were forcibly separated. Now in this vast empty area he was alone. I wonder if this is a mechanism of the ancient gate, or something done intentionally by the Pantheon Daelord. Jiang Chengxuan spoke to himself. While it was unlikely that the Pantheon Daelord had orchestrated this, it wasn't entirely outside the realm of possibility. After all, he had declared that upon entry, their alliances would be nullified. And using reasonable means to hinder competitors was, after all, quite normal. Living in the world of cultivators, such deceit and cunning were commonplace. And merely separating one's team was hardly considered a despicable tactic. It was quite within the rules. Phew! Jiang Chengxuan exhaled softly. Regardless, He had to trust that Shen Ruyan and the others could handle sudden situations on their own. The only thing he could do now was to try to reunite with them as quickly as possible. And he couldn't rush this. The opportunities and dangers within this immortal's cave abode were still unknown, and one careless move might lead to his own downfall, turning him into a laughingstock. At such times, impatience, carelessness, and overconfidence were his greatest enemies. Those who approached the seizing of opportunities with such attitudes often ended up becoming opportunities for others. Having fought his way here from the lower realms, Jiang Chengxuan was acutely aware of these truths. He immediately adjusted his mindset, focusing all his thoughts on exploring the immortal's cave abode. First, he extended his senses outward, slowly spreading into the external world. But this realm contained nothing but emptiness. Once he had ruled out immediate dangers, Jiang Chengxuan began to mentally map out his next destination. His sixth-level heavenly calculation technique started interacting with this mysterious world. Initially, he saw only a vast, silent nightscape. As his prediction deepened, other things began to emerge. Several extremely bright and hot orbs of light appeared in a certain direction, embellishing the otherwise dead night. Such a scene indicated that in that direction lay extremely potent energy, likely some treasure. Intuition of the heavens issued no warnings, prompting Jiang Chengxuan to decide to head there immediately. Upon entering the immortal's cave abode, he had kept his intuition of the heavens at its peak, foreseeing the auspiciousness or peril of any slight disturbance. This was the power of heavenly calculation technique, invaluable whether in battle or in seeking fortunes, turning calamities into blessings. The five-element light that Jiang Chengxuan transformed into traversed this void, quickly arriving at the prophesied location. But what met him was not a scene of vibrant life or mystical mists. Upon his arrival, as if a mechanism had been triggered, the distant horizon suddenly erupted as a vast swath of meteors blazed towards him. It was as if a sea of fire had ignited in the sky, or countless cannons were firing simultaneously, determined to flatten a mountain range. Countless meteors from afar to near arrived in an instant. Just thousands of miles away, he could feel the oppressive force of the meteor swarm. The fierce wind sweeping in first, sharp as blades. The terrifying wind pressure was like a mountain bearing down, squeezing the air clean and making breathing difficult. Had a mere Tao integrating cultivator been standing here, they would likely be unstable, perhaps even injured by the residual force of the meteors. Rumble. The first meteor arrived in an instant, Jiang Chengxuan's expression unchanging as a five-colored light bloomed from his brow. The five elements diagram was immediately deployed, transforming into a massive deep earth halberd. Jiang Chengxuan charged headlong towards the approaching meteor, his single arm swinging with force as the deep earth halberd swept up a tempest, heavily crashing down onto the meteor. In that moment, Jiang Chengxuan could feel the meteor's power, which was comparable to the might of a Tao integrating cultivator, a force that could match a cultivator's strike. However, as a Tao mastery cultivator who had cultivated both his spirit and physical body, Jiang Chengxuan's immense physical strength erupted under the swing of his deep earth halberd, shattering the enormous meteor instantly. Rumble. The collision resonated like thunder and fire, with the shattered meteor creating a flaming tornado, a sight profoundly awe-inspiring. But this was only the beginning. As the first meteor shattered, countless others continued to arrive in rapid succession. Wave after wave of fiery onslaught engulfed the area, the intense heat of the celestial fire completely covering the region. Jiang Chengxuan had no time to think further. He immediately manifested the five elements Tao and the Samsara Tao. The five elements Samsara world forcibly upheld a realm within the sea of fire, a sanctuary impervious to evil. The power of the five elements instantly transformed into countless streams of five-colored light, like a colorful rain of light, shooting towards the massive swarm of meteors. Wherever they passed, they were unstoppable, piercing through any meteors they touched. Streams of five-colored divine light pierced the meteors like wasp nests, followed by bursts of magical power that erupted from within, instantly annihilating the enormous meteors. Jiang Chengxuan stood before this rain of fiery meteors, striking at them as if he were single-handedly battling the heavens, filled with heroic fervor at that moment. Facing the sudden crisis, Jiang Chengxuan remained composed and unflustered, his expression unchanged as he calmly and precisely executed each attack and response. In the endless void, Jiang Chengxuan stood alone against the meteor swarm that wielded the might of Tao integration, brandishing the deep earth halberd and unleashing the power of the dragon elephant with abandon. At this moment, he was like a lone warrior facing thousands of troops, alone against countless attacks of Tao integration. Within the void, the rule of the five elements and the rule of samsara had been manifested to their utmost, forming a world of five elements samsara that propped up a corner of the heavens. Inside, the terrifying power of these rules demonstrated endless variations. Any meteor that touched this five-colored aureola was instantly bombarded by the alternating strikes of the five elements, and shattered in a moment. Even though each meteor contained the might of Tao integration, they could not breach the defenses of the five elements samsara world. Yet the situation did not easily improve. After Jiang Chengxuan shattered one meteor after another, what followed was wave after wave of bombardments. These meteors seemed to appear out of nowhere, driven by some unknown force, appearing endlessly as if out of thin air. Wave after wave, an infinite curtain of fire trembled and swept over. All Jiang Chengxuan could do was to shatter the incoming meteors again and again, wielding the deep earth halberd repeatedly. There must be a treasure nearby, and these meteors might be mechanisms set to eliminate those who dare to steal the treasure. The samsara rule on Jiang Chengxuan constantly replenished his strength, a new divine power displayed by the path of samsara after he had entered the realm of Tao mastery. Utilizing the rule of samsara, he could replenish a part of the dharmic power expended with each release, a cycle of energy in itself. With this divine power of samsara, Jiang Chengxuan could continue to battle for years without completely exhausting his strength. However, Jiang Chengxuan did not anticipate that the momentum of these meteors seemed to demand endless combat. Time mercilessly passed, and around Jiang Chengxuan, countless shattered stones accumulated, forming a galaxy. Yet the number of meteors seemed infinite, not pausing even for a moment. Under the continuous collisions, even the tip of the deep earth halberd turned slightly red, a reaction from the explosions after each impact. In a flash, Jiang Chengxuan could not help but wonder if the heavenly calculation technique was being interfered with by some immortal's cave abode, leading to some error. However, giving up now seemed too ludicrous. Thus, Jiang Chengxuan did not retreat, but chose to continue probing and waiting for a change. Finally, after shattering several waves of Tao integration-powered meteor showers, the change Jiang Chengxuan had been waiting for arrived. However, this change hardly improved his mood. For the meteor shower of Tao integration might had seemingly ended, but what followed was an attack by meteors of Tao fusion might, far more formidable. Faced with this, Jiang Chengxuan also began to feel a hint of confusion. But on second thought, at least these inexplicable meteor attacks were showing variation, indicating they were artificially set and not natural phenomena. This meant that someone, for some purpose, had orchestrated these endless meteor attacks. This notion indirectly confirmed that Jiang Chengxuan's heavenly calculation technique was indeed correct. Thinking this, the confusion and impatience in Jiang Chengxuan's heart dissipated. No matter what lay behind these attacks, since he had come this far, he must see it through. In an instant, Jiang Chengxuan unleashed even more potent dharmic power. The deep earth halberd glimmered with golden light, transforming into the more lethal golden void sword. Wielding the golden void sword, he turned into a terrifying golden beam of light, actively slashing towards the evolved Tao fusion power meteors. He had roughly deduced that the faster he shattered the meteors, the quicker the results would manifest. The timing of the next wave of meteors was not fixed, but depended on how quickly the previous wave was destroyed. Now, switching from defense to offense, he actively sought change with the destructive power of gold. The Tao fusion might meteors were more than twice as strong as the Tao integration ones, but before the golden void sword, they still shattered upon contact. This wave of Tao fusion meteors took only half a day for Jiang Chengxuan to completely annihilate. Then, as anticipated, the next wave of meteor showers arrived on schedule. At this point, the pattern Jiang Chengxuan had discerned was entirely correct. He judged that when the meteors of Tao mastery appeared, the treasure would emerge. Since the heavenly calculation technique had not foreseen danger, it indicated that no meteors of Mahayana might existed. With that realization, Jiang Chengxuan gathered all his energy and once again attacked without hesitation. Rumble! Wave after wave of Tao fusion meteors were obliterated by Jiang Chengxuan, and the unleashed force once again heated the void to an extreme. Protected by the cycle of samsara and employing the lethal forces of the five elements, Jiang Chengxuan did not pause for even a moment. His determination unyielding, he cleaved through heaven and earth with radiant bursts of golden light, splitting each massive meteor into two with high efficiency. Under such circumstances, the time it took to shatter the second wave of Tao fusion meteors was only half that of the first. Suddenly, at a specific moment, an even more terrifying force and aura transmitted from the distant reaches. This power, even Jiang Chengxuan started to feel a hint of pressure. In the distance, a massive meteor burning with purple flames approached, its terrifying might compressing the void into ripples. Compared to the previous meteors, this one was entirely purple, resembling crystal. Tao mastery, Jiang Chengxuan murmured. His heart was filled with anticipation, yet weighed down by the immense pressure. This incoming wave of meteors was not large in number, but each one contained the power of Tao mastery. Even with Jiang Chengxuan's strength, he now had to be cautious in his response, for any carelessness could potentially result in injury. According to his calculations, this should be the final wave of assault. Rumble. The meteors infused with Tao mastery, mixed with thunder and purple flames, approached. Jiang Chengxuan no longer held back. Behind him, the brilliance of green, red, yellow, white, and blue erupted, and the five-color annihilation light was immediately deployed, striking out with terrifying force towards the meteors. In an instant, the void shook incessantly, and the connecting purple flames burst forth, transforming into a purple firestorm that incinerated the remnants of the previous meteors, terrifying in its ferocity. And just at the moment it shattered, a mysterious aura suddenly emanated, causing Jiang Chengxuan's eyes to light up. In the next instant, Jiang Chengxuan struck again, the five-color annihilation light flaring up to completely pulverize the meteor. From within the shattered piece of the Tao Mastery meteor, suddenly, a radiant light burst forth. A fruit glowing with the hue of glaze flew towards him, unexpected and sudden. That was an odd fruit shimmering with the light of glaze, radiating an extremely pure life energy. Its aura made Jiang Chengxuan feel inexplicably familiar. Feeling a stir in his heart, Jiang Chengxuan realized that the aura of this glazed fruit was somewhat similar to that of the creation rule. This discovery undoubtedly startled Jiang Chengxuan, followed immediately by elation. The rule of creation is one of the most fundamental rules of this world, representing the most supreme power. Even now, Jiang Chengxuan had only touched the surface of the creation rule, relying on its residual power. If this glazed fruit indeed had a connection with the creation rule, then it must represent a great opportunity, perhaps even being a legendary level 9 spiritual item. Just as Jiang Chengxuan was about to secure the glazed fruit, a sudden gravitational force emerged from afar, pulling the approaching fruit away. Jiang Chengxuan looked towards the source and saw another massive meteor rushing towards him, burning with gray flames and carrying a certain force of rule that had snatched the glazed fruit away. Jiang Chengxuan would not stand idly by. To avoid damaging the fruit, he shifted his focus, and a surge of golden light exploded behind him, materializing into a colossal beam of divine gold light that shot forth. Now a Tao mastery cultivator, this eruption of golden divine light had a terrifying range, covering the meteor in layers, with the rule of metal sweeping over it like tidal waves. The golden light flickered in the void, leaving trails of golden afterimages, flattening the gray-flamed Tao mastery meteor. The force within these meteors was obliterated under the golden rule, turning into nothingness. Thus the glazed fruit was once again stationary, shining with glaze-like light, resembling a treasured lamp. However, swiftly thereafter, another powerful force emanated from a distance, and the fruit was once again drawn away. It seemed as if all this was designed, deliberately luring Jiang Chengxuan deeper. This made Jiang Chengxuan slightly furrow his brows, and the heavenly calculation technique whirled in his consciousness again, displaying the same divinations as before. Clearly, if just facing the Tao mastery meteors, there was still no imminent danger. However, in the minutest details, there was a hint of instability, suggesting that something truly perilous might exist here, though Jiang Chengxuan had yet to meet the conditions to trigger it. Thus, Jiang Chengxuan resolved to seize the treasure forcefully here, keeping an eye out, ready to flee should the situation turn sour. Rumble. The third majestic meteor possessing the might of Tao mastery quickly broke through the layers of the void. It too contained the power of rule, its entire body like obsidian, reflecting the energies in the void. This bizarre form immediately made Jiang Chengxuan sense something unusual. The rules it carried were probably not as simple as those before. After all, the meteor attacks gradually increased in strength. The power of each meteor was stronger than the one before. This time, Jiang Chengxuan did not opt for full force right away, but first cast a fire talisman, launching a cyan flame spiral towards the black meteor. The attack of the level 8 fire talisman hit the meteor mightily, but then, a surge of black energy violently erupted from the meteor's surface, tumultuous with rule. Under this eerie rule power, the cyan pillar of the level 8 fire talisman was actually reflected back. This meteor carried the rule of reflection. Fortunately, Jiang Chengxuan was prepared. A force of the 5 elements was deployed to erase the reflected cyan pillar. This undoubtedly gave him a slight shock. Had he struck with full force as before, the situation would have been much more embarrassing, and injuries would have been inevitable. After all, having one's own full strike reflected back at the moment of new force generation would leave even a great Daelord unprepared and unable to retreat unscathed. By a narrow margin, what could have been Jiang Chengxuan's strongest blow after ascending to the realm of Tao mastery might very well have become his demise. Fortunately, by observing carefully and opting to probe cautiously first, he avoided this crisis. But the black meteor, reflecting a strange light, continued to carry violent power as it approached. Although its rule was not offensive, its strength, possessing the might of Tao mastery, was still formidable. Jiang Chengxuan quickly thought through his options, and without any hesitation, he acted decisively. The power of the rule of samsara extended to its extreme, and a giant vortex suddenly erupted in the void. A colossal hand of samsara appeared out of nowhere, its might shaking the heavens. Under the influence of the hand of samsara, the surrounding rules and forces were instantly reversed, overturning the heavens. Jiang Chengxuan waved his hand, and the hand of samsara stirred up countless vortices, covering the black meteor. In an instant the stars reversed, the Milky Way flowed backwards, and the hand of samsara and the rule of reflection collided violently. The opposing forces clashed fiercely, causing the entire void to tremble uncontrollably. The massive forces collided and then exploded, generating an even more formidable power. Then this force was reflected back, only to be reversed again by the hand of samsara, and then reflected and reversed again. Within a single breath, the two forces collided countless times, creating terrifying shockwaves that made the void tremble as if in the midst of an earthquake. Boom! It was as if two Tao mastery cultivators were furiously bombarding each other, causing explosions to erupt and stars to shatter. But in the end, it was Jiang Chengxuan's power of samsara that prevailed. After enduring countless reflections and explosions, the black meteor finally shattered into dust. Phew! This clash left Jiang Chengxuan feeling slightly fatigued. The danger involved was comparable to battling a master of the Tao to the death. But then the glazed fruit, emanating a misty light of glazed brilliance, reappeared, flying towards Jiang Chengxuan and finally settling gently in his palm. From the fruit, Jiang Chengxuan sensed an unprecedentedly rich vitality, as if what he held was the essence of an entire miniature world. Especially once he grasped it in his hand, he could feel strands of rules that were indeed very similar to the power of creation. This familiar sensation made Jiang Chengxuan seem to recall the origin of this fruit. This appears to be the primordial fruit, Jiang Chengxuan exclaimed, finally recognizing the origin of this fruit. This fruit, nearly a level 9 spiritual item known as the primordial fruit or the life origin fruit, is imbued with abundant vitality and a touch of the creation aura. Consuming it can extend a cultivator's lifespan and help them avoid calamities. Moreover, it has another formidable use. It can help Tao integration cultivators transcend tribulations. The primordial fruit is inherently able to communicate with heaven and earth, influencing all natural beings. Its abundant vitality can even obscure the heavenly secrets, shielding cultivators from tribulations. Such a treasure is exceedingly rare even in the long history of the floodgate realm, making it extraordinarily precious. Holding the primordial fruit in his hand, Jiang Chengxuan instantly felt all his efforts were worthwhile. Having an almost level 9 spiritual item as a reward could understandably lead to life and death struggles among masters of the Tao. If this item appeared in the floodgate realm, it would likely trigger a desperate battle among numerous Tao mastery cultivators. After all, for those above the void returning realm, prolonging life to avoid tribulations is of utmost value. Without a breakthrough, no matter how powerful one is, even if one can fight Mahayana using the power of Tao mastery, the end of one's extended lifespan means inevitable destruction by the natural calamities. Such a near level 9 item as the primordial fruit, capable of extending life to avoid tribulations, is naturally extremely attractive to established powers. Perhaps, with this additional lifespan, one could transform decay into magic, defy fate, and step into greatness. Indeed worthy of being from an immortal cave abode. The first opportunity he encountered was so thrilling, Jiang Chengxuan praised inwardly. After carefully examining it for a while, Jiang Chengxuan stored the primordial fruit, and once again initiated the heavenly calculation technique. In the world he calculated, the sense of danger was still subtle, and the sign indicating the presence of treasures had not diminished much. This indicated that more treasures, likely of comparable nearly level 9 quality, still existed ahead. Such an opportunity was hard to resist, so Jiang Chengxuan immediately calmed his mind and decided to challenge the meteor formation once again. He transformed into a 5-color light, flying towards the source of the meteors. As expected at the distant horizon, another vast sea of fire slowly spread, his all-too-familiar meteor shower, still carrying the might of Tao integration. It seemed that the meteor showers of Tao integration, Tao fusion, and Tao mastery were part of a complete cycle, and within the last Tao mastery meteor shower, there must be a nearly level 9 treasure. Jiang Chengxuan felt he was gradually understanding the pattern of this place. The next moment, the deep earth halberd was immediately deployed, creating a series of explosions and fireballs. This time, it took just a few days for him to clear the first wave of Tao integration meteors, and then the more terrifying Tao fusion meteors struck again. Without any chance to breathe, Jiang Chengxuan transformed the deep earth halberd into the golden void sword, slashing through the void once more. As before, he manifested the 5 elements samsara Tao in the meteor shower, wreaking havoc, and after 7 days, the last batch of Tao fusion meteors was also annihilated by his sword. Rumble! The void vibrated incessantly, and the meteors bearing the might of Tao mastery finally struck again. Jiang Chengxuan's expression turned serious, his mental state instantly adjusted to its peak. The 5-color annihilation light, the hand of samsara, both were ready to be deployed. The world of the 5 elements samsara propped up a massive canopy once more. Jiang Chengxuan, displaying his full prowess, let the power of the Tao mastery manifest unmistakably. A 5-colored long river of annihilating light instantly spanned thousands of miles across the void, fiercely slamming into the approaching Tao mastery meteor. In an instant, the void shook, the divine light illuminated the darkness, and the Tao mastery meteor burst apart, the 5-color annihilation light overwhelmingly powerful. Yet Jiang Chengxuan did not relax. His dharmic power surged out, manifesting the laws to their extreme, silently awaiting the arrival of the next Tao mastery meteor. Then another earth-shattering collision commenced. A few days later, this void battlefield fell once again into silence. Standing with his hands behind his back amidst the peaks formed by huge meteor fragments, Jiang Chengxuan's eyes sparkled with insight. This time, it had taken just a few days to shatter the last wave of Tao mastery meteors. The dangers involved went without saying, but with his formidable strength, Jiang Chengxuan successfully turned danger into safety, seizing the opportunity. This second challenge had finally yielded another, nearly level 9 treasure from the meteors, a cosmic crystal. This item, like the primordial fruit, was formed at the dawn of creation and was also level 9. Its function was extremely pure, yet overwhelmingly powerful, providing the cosmic energy needed for breakthroughs. Just a small piece of cosmic crystal contained more energy than the crystal mines of an entire world. It was as if using the power of creation to condense a small world into a cosmic crystal, utterly terrifying. Storing the cosmic crystal in his bag, Jiang Chengxuan undoubtedly felt immensely satisfied again. This immortal cave abode was truly one of the foremost opportunities in the world, where nearly level 9 treasures were seemingly commonplace. However, the dangers involved were also terrifyingly real. If it were not Jiang Chengxuan here but another sex Tao master, securing even one nearly level 9 treasure would already be their limit. Moreover, despite obtaining the treasures, how to leave remained a significant challenge. This place seemed like an endless formation. As long as one ventured forward, meteors would obstruct the path. While these meteors held opportunities, their number was vast, seemingly endless. Thus, Jiang Chengxuan calmed his spirit and once again initiated the heavenly calculation technique. However, this time, the intuition from the heavenly calculation technique told him not to stay any longer. Otherwise, something truly terrifying might occur. After breaking through 2 meteor showers, the heavenly calculation technique finally successfully divined an exit path. Just 3 more meteor showers to go, and he could successfully leave this area. For this, Jiang Chengxuan naturally harbored no reluctance nor resistance. Having secured 2 nearly level 9 treasures, he had already reaped significant gains. Moreover, staying further might endanger his life, leaving no room for hesitation. Opportunity was important, but there was no need to risk life for it, especially when he had already gained enough. It was time to know when to stop. Greed is often a fatal flaw, a lesson Jiang Chengxuan had long since internalized.